before a dilapidated desk, Lin held a quill, the lamp's light flickering upon it. He wrote the principles he lived by since he traversed to this world 2 years prior in his diary. Lin, time's up, hang the lamp outside, prepare to open shop. A voice, raspy as though gnawing bones, rang out. Lin shook his head. This voice belonged to their potion shop's proprietor, his teacher who had rescued him 2 years ago. He was an assistant in this potion shop in a different world. Coming, Lin shouted. However, at that moment, a cold synthetic voice suddenly resonated in his mind. Lin was stunned. Was this voice the system? Could it be that after traversing this world for 2 years, he had finally awakened a special ability? However, he didn't immediately explore this as he knew that if he didn't act according to his teacher's command promptly, he would perish. Lin quickly exited the dim attic. Immediately, he saw his teacher dragging a bisected carcass of an unidentified being towards the adjacent operating room. Crimson blood left a long trail on the moldy floor. Soon, the shrill sound of a chainsaw emanated from the operation room. Hearing the gnawing sounds behind him, Lin's expression steadied. Creak, creak. The neglected floorboards beneath his feet made a piercing noise. Lin moved to the hull, picked up the lantern from the quarter, and twisted the winder. Drop by drop, crimson blood fell from within onto the wick. Woo! A strand of crimson flame ignited. If one listened closely, faint, eerie screams could be heard from within the lantern. With a calm expression, Lin carefully opened the door. The outside was enshrouded in darkness, faintly mist-wrapped, and occasionally, mysterious giggles could be heard from within the shadows. He maintained his composure, hanging the lantern on the doorpost, illuminating the dilapidated sign beside it. Lin immediately planned to turn around and return to the potion shop. However, at this moment, a low and eerie laugh emanated from the darkness. Young man, good morning. Do you have any useless trash for this old woman? I will give you corresponding rewards, haha. Within the darkness, a strand of dim light appeared, and an old woman, hunched, donned in tattered hemp clothes, dragging a cart, emerged. A kindly smile rested on her face, yet Lin distinctly saw. The lantern she held was made of human skin, and the rusty cart she dragged seemed to grow from her hand. Lin remained composed. All right, wait a moment. Lin quickly turned around, walking back to the potion shop, and grabbed 2 black bags from the door. Fatally, a heavy, putrid smell of blood emanated from the bags, and it seemed like something inside was struggling, emitting muted groans. Calmly, Lin placed it on the old woman's cart. Thank you, young man, you are a kind soul. The smile didn't leave the old woman's face. She slowly extended her withered hand and gouged 2 bloody eyeballs from her sockets. Young man, this is your reward from this old woman. Gazing at the steaming eyeballs, Lin calmly extended his hand to accept them, saying, I'll accept them, thank you. The old woman's smile was particularly radiant, but her hollow eye sockets were especially chilling. Then, under Lin's watchful gaze, the old woman, pulling her cart, slowly disappeared into the darkness. Lin maintained his composure but sighed in relief internally, and immediately returned to the potion shop. He learned from his teacher that the tailor shop stitched human skin, the pork shop sold human flesh, and they were just across the street from their potion shop. Yet, in the scavenger's hands, were the eyeballs of both shop owners. This leads to another rule he deduced about this world. Lin turned around, his expression forcibly calm. Lin calmed his emotions and tentatively spoke. System. At that moment, a panel abruptly appeared in front of Lin's eyes. An unnoticed assistant at Bloodsaw Potion Shop. A frail yet astute young human. He had lived in this world for 2 years, his existence hanging by a thread, uncertain when death might claim him. Lin calmly scrutinized the panel that had abruptly materialized before him. Over the 2 years, he had developed the ability to keep his composure, enabling him to maintain his calm in the face of nearly anything. He studied it over and over for a moment. He roughly understood some functions of the system. So it means, as long as I continually complete the tasks given by the creatures of this world, I can receive corresponding rewards and enhance my various abilities. Lin pondered in his heart. If this was the case, then his chances of surviving in this world increased slightly. And at this moment, his teacher's raspy voice and footsteps came from within the house. When I need to go out for a bit, I should be back within 2 days. You need to keep a good watch on the shop, lock the door at night, and don't let those annoying thieves take anything. A dragging sound echoed from the hallway. Len immediately returned inside. At the front door, his teacher was dragging a blood-soaked sack. Something inside seemed to be rustling, struggling. That towering figure, at least 2 meters high, with a body covered in dark red tumors, was his teacher, and a panel instantaneously appeared before Lin's eyes. Lin's heart quivered, but his face remained impassive. "Sir, is there anything I need to be cautious about while you're away?" Lin inquired. He knew this was something he had to ask, otherwise he might end up dead. Bloodsaw Maniac slung the sack over his back, his voice raspy as he said, "Those with money, pay. Those without, make an equivalent exchange. Those without money who are unwilling to exchange, you do the cutting yourself." Thump. A blood-stained boning knife was thrown before Lin. "Remember," Bloodsaw Maniac, shouldering that blood-drenched sack, strode towards the shop exit. "No matter what noises you hear outside, do not step out of the range of the soul lamp. No matter who asks you to go out and provide medical treatment, do not pay any attention. At night, lock the doors, shut the windows, kill anyone who comes in, ignore anyone who calls you." Lin nodded, taking his teacher's words to heart. "Yes, sir, I understand." Then, under his watchful eyes, the burly Bloodsaw Maniac quickly disappeared into the dense darkness. Time swiftly passed. Lin began his daily routine, wiping the blood off the ground and adjusting the common potions for treating various diseases. Then he sat at the counter, the boning knife in hand, his eyes closed, waiting as time passed. And the next moment, knock, 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 3 knocks sounded from outside the door. Lin lifted his head towards the direction of the door. A dirty little girl stood at the entrance, clutching a doll in her arms, her little hand gently knocking on the door. A pitiable expression was on her face as she said, "Is the shopkeeper in? My doll's arm is broken, can you fix my doll?" Lin glanced over. He saw the flame of the soul lamp outside the door flickering slightly. The chaotic flicker represents the strength of the newcomer, and under the protection of the soul lamp, as long as he does not invite them in, they cannot enter. Of course, exceptions are made for powerful beings. Information about the girl appeared before his eyes instantly. A chill ran down Lin's spine, but his face remained calm. "Come in." As a potion shop assistant in this wandering soul lane, Lin knew that there are rules here as well. These evil spirits and ghosts wouldn't be murderous unless you touched their taboos. Business could still be done. The girl, looking pitiable, sat in front of the platform with her doll in her arms. Lin glanced. The arm of the doll in her arms had been completely torn apart, oozing crimson blood and stains, as if something had bitten it off fiercely. "Doctor, please save my doll. Her arm is broken. Her arm is gone. She is my favorite doll. If this continues, she will die," the girl said pitifully. Suddenly, the corner of her mouth jerked violently, stretching to the back of her neck, and a bloody smile appeared on her face instantly. "You can save the doll, can't you? Right, big brother?" Lin remained calm, extending his hand to examine the torn surface of the doll's arm. At this moment, a system voice rang in his mind. "Lin, this system is indeed powerful, actually able to automatically assist him in making a diagnosis. If that's the case, it would be much simpler." He glanced at the little girl, ignoring her bloody smile, and said, "Have you eaten anything recently?" The little girl immediately retracted her bloody smile, once again returning to her harmless and pitiable appearance. Her hands clasped together, saying, "I haven't eaten for many days. I'm extremely hungry, but last night when I was asleep, I did have a big meal in my dream." She licked the corner of her mouth, suddenly showing a silver bell-like smile, saying, "It was delicious." The doll on the table suddenly showed the same creepy smile as the girl, repeatedly echoing those words. "Delicious, delicious." Lin maintained his composure and said, "If that's the case, I suspect you must have eaten something you shouldn't have. What you ate was likely this arm of your doll." The girl's smile froze momentarily, yet the doll's laughter persisted incessantly. "Dolly loves mommy. Mommy loves Dolly." Lin lifted his head, his eyes deadpan, and asked, "Have you been feeling discomfort in your stomach lately?" The girl stiffly replied, "My stomach's been growling, feels like something's scratching it." Lin nodded, taking notes, and casually queried, "So, it should be right. It seems it hasn't been digested yet. Do you want surgery or physical therapy?" The girl, remaining rigid, asked, "How would it be done?" Clang, Lin thrust the bloody boning knife into the table. "We cut open your belly, take out your doll's arm, and then I sew you back up." Instantly, the laughter of the doll stopped abruptly. A shiver ran from the girl's feet to her head. Lin stood up, picking up gloves and a mask from the counter. He gazed at her calmly. "Whether you want it removed from above or below, I can assist with either, and it's cheaper." The girl, in a daze, muttered, "From above then." "All right." Lin pushed aside the things on the counter and flexed his wrists, stating, "You're small, no need for an operating room. I can assist you now, but you'll have to endure it and not bite off my arm." Under the horrified gaze of the girl, Lin's immense shadow enveloped her, with a mask and leather gloves, his eyes emanating calm light. The girl sat on the small stool, instantly hugging her doll. Can I refuse? Lin replied indifferently. No, my teacher said, once you enter this shop, you must get treated. Otherwise, you should at least leave something behind. The girl shivered vacantly and eventually conceded. All right then. She opened her mouth wider. With a crack, the girl pulled her mouth to the back of her neck, revealing her enormous, gaping maw. A foul stench hit them in the face. Lin, with a composed expression, fetched a brace from the counter, securing her mouth open to prevent any stress reactions. Then, he flexed his arm and reached into the girl's mouth. With a slurp, it went in smoothly. It was deep. The girl's eyes widened instantly. Don't move around. Lin, with a stern face, calmly explored her stomach. It'll be over soon. If you don't want your doll to remain incomplete, stay still. Under the horrified gaze of the doll on the counter, Lin patiently continued to extract various strange objects covered in a viscous liquid from the girl's stomach. The girl, with her eyes wide and mouth agape, continuously made fearful moans. Found it. The thought crossed Lin's mind. His fingers touched an object that was still squirming. With a crack, to the immense horror of both the girl and the doll, Lin extracted a small arm coated in a viscous liquid from her stomach. It was indeed the arm of the doll she had consumed. Lin calmly rinsed the arm and placed it on the counter, stating, this should be it. You must have been very hungry that night, unconsciously eating your doll's arm. Your doll, seeing your hunger, didn't remind you. However, you must be careful in the future. Don't casually eat strange things. They are hard to digest. The girl, with her mouth held open by the brace, couldn't utter a word. Physical therapy, 10 skull coins. Stitching, 30 coins. With his mask on, Lin calmly took out hemp rope and a sharp, long needle, gleaming sharply. Do we stitch now? The doll in her arms started to cry out of fear, fluttering, trying to escape. Mao, stitch. The girl, her mouth braced open, uttered vacantly. Lin put on gloves, replying indifferently, all right, help me hold it down, and I'll start with the needle. The girl immediately widened her eyes and pressed the fluttering, struggling doll against the counter. The cold light reflected in Lin's eyes made the doll scream in fear. Starting now. Swish, swish, swish. More than half an hour later, accompanied by the extremely tragic screams of the doll, Lin took out scissors, cut off the thread, and said, all right, apply some medicine every day, and in less than a week, this arm will be back to normal. Lin took a bottle of green potion from the counter. After opening it, he poured it on the stitched area, and the doll instantly let out a harsh scream. The girl blankly asked, Is it over? Lin clapped her hands and quietly said, done, you can pay now, physical therapy 10 coins. Stitching 30 coins, 1 bottle of medicine 10 coins, a total of 7 bottles, so 110 coins in total. Thank you for your patronage, and welcome back again. The doll swiftly clung to the girl, trembling and looking at Lin in fear. Apparently, in its mind, Lin had left an unforgettable psychological shadow. The girl blankly fumbled around her body. After a long time, she took out 20 coins and shakily placed them on the counter, saying, I only brought 20. Lin indifferently said, okay, you're 90 coins short. Which part of you do you plan to mortgage? I can cut it for you. This is free. With that, Lin picked up the boning knife. The girl instantly stepped back, revealing an expression. I have 10 more coins. The girl quickly took out 10 coins from her clothes and placed them on the counter. Lin indifferently said, still short 80. The girl placed the 6 bottles of potion down, saying, I will come back to buy these potions later. Lin took back the potions and indifferently said, still short 20. The girl, trembling, said, can I get credit? Lin, holding the knife, stepped out and indifferently said, small business, no credit, I can't do it. But 20 coins are not much. You leave one of your eyeballs, I can give you the potions, and I can even give you 40 coins as change. The girl took a step back, holding her doll and covering her eye, and tremblingly said, can I pay with something else? Lin indifferently said, you say, I'll evaluate. The girl swallowed saliva and, trembling, said, how about I let you have a go at me, and you forgive all my debts? Lin spoke indifferently, small business. I don't accept bodily compensation. Rest assured, I only want your right eye. You can redeem it once you earn enough money. All right, okay. A few minutes later, Lin calmly washed the blood off his hands. Then, he placed the eyeball into a bottle filled with a special reagent and labeled it appropriately. Turning around, he looked at the girl, who was covering one of her eyes and politely said, Bloodsaw Potion Shop sincerely serves you. Lin bowed deeply. The girl, clutching her doll, walked out, and her voice could be heard from afar. I should quickly find Mom. I won't come again, socks. What a sinister shop. Lin was taken aback. Looking towards the door again, the silhouette of the girl had already disappeared into the darkness. Completion 2%. Lin's gaze immediately fell on the plate on the counter, which contained several organs scooped out from the girl's stomach. Lin, it had to be said, he indeed had a terrifying conjecture. Lin stood up, washed those parts clean, and then sealed them in bottles, preparing to discuss this matter with the girl when she came next time. He opened his own panel. Due to the previous rewards, he had gained a total of 50 points of surgical skill experience and an additional 50 skull coins of his own. The customer's money belonged to the shop, he couldn't use it. So, his total property at the moment was 150 skull coins. Skull coins were a basic currency in the world he now inhabited, usable as a general equivalent object. But Lin hadn't truly stepped out of this shop in the last 2 years, so he also had no opportunity to use it. But having more money never hurts. Time swiftly passed. Lin, with his eyes closed, held a bone-picking knife in his hand, like a statue. The soul lamp at the entrance represented a kind of rule, telling the wandering souls in the darkness that this was a place with an owner. If filled with malice, they would certainly pay the corresponding price. Most wandering spirit monsters generally would not invade when the soul lamp was lit, because within the homestead sheltered by the soul lamp, the owner can use the soul lamp to suppress the invading evil spirits and monsters at any time if he wishes. However, this does not exclude some extremely evil ghosts and monsters. For them, there are no rules in this world that will be obeyed. Thump, thump, thump. At this time, knocking sounds came from outside the door again. Welcome. Lin opened his eyes, and he instantly saw a monster with the body of a burly pig-headed man appearing at the front door, one of his eyes bloody, without an eyeball, wearing a scarlet apron and holding a butcher knife that seemed to have just cut something. A panel instantly appeared in front of Lin. Bad luck. The pigfolk cursed while covering his own eye socket, saying, just because there was no useless trash to give to that old woman, she took one of my eyes. Next time I encounter her, I definitely spit. He spat out a mouthful of foul-smelling phlegm. The pigfolk strode in, the soul lamp flickering constantly. A foul and bloody scent swept in, making Lin feel a surge of nausea. The pigfolk plopped down on the stool in front of the counter, the remaining sharp pig eye looking at Lin. He glanced around and said, "Where's Bloodsaw? Let him come out, exchange an eyeball with me, and I'll exchange top-quality prey with him." Lin maintained his composure and quietly said, "My teacher is out on an errand. If there is anything, you can tell me." The pigfolk paused for a moment, then turned his head, squinted his eye, and his gaze fell on Lin as if he were scrutinizing a piece of meat. "Oh?" Waves surged in Lin's heart, but his face still maintained composure. However, his decision was very right. If he tried to deceive and tell this pork demon that his teacher was in the backyard after he noticed the discrepancies, he would definitely attack him immediately. Being honest and straightforward, on the other hand, would make the other party wary. "Which type of eyeball do you need?" Lin turned around, quietly pointing to the eyeballs soaking in the reagents on the shelf. "We have human eyes, pig eyes, undead eyes, bad eyes, blood doll eyes. You can choose whichever you like, different eyes of different prices." The cruel light flashed in the eyes of the pigfolk, revealing a mouthful of fangs, and a rich foul breath swept through. "I think your eyeballs seem quite good." He stretched out his tongue and licked his own cracked lips. Lin knew that as long as he showed fear, this pigfolk would undoubtedly attack him without any scruples. "Mine?" Lin turned his head and looked at him calmly. Then, under the vicious gaze of the pigfolk, Lin slowly stretched out 3 fingers and, in front of him, inserted them into his own eye socket, bit by bit gouging out his right eye. Squeak, squeak. A few seconds later, Lin had his steaming eye resting in his palm. The empty eye socket was dripping with fresh blood, puffing out heat, but his face remained unchanged. "1 for 200 skull coins. If it doesn't match, no returns." The pigfolk was stunned. He didn't expect that the seemingly frail human in front of him could gouge out his own eyeball so ruthlessly in front of him. When he had his eyeball taken by that scavenger, he had wailed in pain for quite a while. Yet, Lin could still maintain his composure. His gaze flickered. He had begun to suspect that this apprentice of Bloodsaw might have been altered by Bloodsaw into a stitched monster. No ordinary person could possibly remain so composed in his presence. "I don't want yours, I want my own eyeball," he uttered deeply in a raspy voice. Lin's expression was serene. He casually pressed his eyeball back into its socket and quietly sat back down. Lin then reached into his bosom. "This I do have." Then, under the astonished gaze of the pigfolk, Lin drew from his bosom a large eyeball, still sticky with flesh and blood, the eyeball still moving. The pigfolk abruptly stood up, trembling. This, indeed. He recognized at a glance. That eyeball was the one that had been plucked out by the old woman. But how could his eyeball be with this human apprentice? Lin placed the eyeball on the counter and said quietly, "I met that kind old lady this morning. This is the toy she gave me." The pigfolk stared intently at the eyeball on the counter, cold sweat dripping from the pig hairs on the back of his neck, trailing down his spine. For he knew very well the horror of that scavenger. With his own strength, he was easily robbed of his eyeball by that scavenger. If she wished, she could just as easily take his head. And that scavenger would actually give his eyeball to this frail human. He found this human apprentice more and more extraordinary. No, it was even becoming somewhat terrifying, because he couldn't fathom the depth of this human. The pigfolk stared at Lin hesitantly and said, "The thing the old woman gave you. Would you dare give it to me?" Lin replied indifferently, "Not give, sell. 200 skull coins, market price." Was he truly unafraid? The pigfolk scrutinized him, searching for a flaw. Could it be that he had a close relationship with that scavenger? The pigfolk pulled out a money bag from his bosom and scattered a substantial amount of skull coins across the counter. He fixed his gaze on Lin and said, "Fine, I'll buy it." With composure, Lin collected the coins into the counter, then put his gloves and mask back on, and pulled out a single eyepiece, speaking lightly, "Deal. Do you want it done here, or shall we go to the operating table?" "Here," the pigfolk declared definitively. No resident of Wandering Soul Lane would want to go to Bloodsaw's operating table. "All right." Lin calmly picked up the bone-scraping knife and instructed, "Lean on the counter, rest your head on the table, and if it hurts, feel free to shout." The pigfolk grinned maliciously. "Do you think I fear pain?" "PFF." Lin took a sip of alcohol and then sprayed it onto the bloody blade. The pigfolk stopped talking immediately. Lin lit a candle and heated the blade over the flame for several minutes. With narrowed eyes, he approached him with the knife, little by little. A drop of cold sweat plopped onto the counter. The pigfolk shivered. "Do you need a knife just to install an eyeball?" Lin quietly spoke, "I just had a look. There are considerable concretions and blood clots in your eye socket. It seems you don't take good care of your eyes. Consider this step extra service. You don't have to thank me." The pigfolk was horrified. But it was already too late. The sound of stirring and the blade scraping against bone echoed. "Ah!" The pigfolk let out heart-wrenching, terrified screams. Several minutes later, Lin cleaned the residue in his eye socket with disinfectant, wondering why this time it increased his blade skill instead of his surgical ability. "It's done." Lin calmly wiped clean the bone-scraping knife in his hand with a cloth. "Don't move. I'm about to install the eyeball. If you move recklessly, be careful, it might get installed backward." The pigfolk leaned there, white froth bubbling from his piggy mouth, his body twitching intermittently, obviously not hearing what Lin had said. Lin blinked, subconsciously muttering, "Damn, I forgot to use anesthesia." It seemed like he also forgot to use it the last time when he was stitching up the arm of a doll. "Whatever." Lin shook his head, his expression returning to calm. He used tweezers to pick up the eye that he had just soaked in reagent, then turned his head, his gaze searching through the medicine cabinet behind him. A few seconds later, Lin took out a white potion bottle from above the cabinet. One could vaguely see that it was labeled with strong glue, and a few other characters that were obviously handwritten. "What is that?" The revived pigfolk shivered. Holding the eyeball, Lin shook the potion in his hand and spoke quietly. "It's a special strong adhesive I made. It can prevent your eyeball from falling out during the installation." Lin explained seriously. The pigfolk shivered. "Install it quickly." "Did you hear me? I don't want to stay here any longer." "Did you hear me?" Lin nodded. "Don't worry, we physicians have strong professional ethics." Lin calmly mixed the viscous potion. Then he evenly applied it around the eyeball, aligned it to the right position, and gently placed the eyeball atop the eye socket. He took out professional tools again and adjusted the angle of the eyeball. He felt around his toolbox. Then he took out a hammer from it. "What are you doing?" The pigfolk screamed tremblingly. Lin frowned. "Don't move. This is the last physical step. If it's misaligned because you moved, I will have to take it out and reinstall it, which will then add a large sum to your surgery fee." Lin shook his head and held down the terrified pig head. Then, carefully with the hammer, he tacked the small bracket holding the eyeball, attentively inserting the eyeball into its socket bit by bit. A few minutes later, Lin blinked. The pigfolk shuddered instantly. "What happened?" "What happened?" Lin frowned. "It's inverted." "Don't worry." Lin, with a calm expression, reached out, grabbed the bracket holding the eyeball, and forcefully pulled it up. With a rip, amidst the horrified screams of the pigfolk and his rapidly decreasing sanity value, Lin forcibly removed the inverted eyeball. "It's just a minor medical accident." Lin calmly readjusted the position, saying, "There's no charge for this. Let me adjust the position again." The pigfolk, in terror, let out sharp screams and struggled frantically. "I don't want it anymore. I won't have it done here. Stay still." Lin's eyes sharpened, and he shouted, "This is the final step. As a doctor, since you have paid, I must be responsible for you. I must ensure every one of my patients leaves here intact." With that, Lin fiercely raised the hammer in his hand. Stop! The pigfolk stretched out his hand and yelled in horror. Then, sparks flew. A dozen minutes later, the pigfolk, shivering uncontrollably, sat there with a blank expression. Across the counter, Lin, clad calmly in a white coat, sat, holding a quill, leisurely writing his medical reports. He pushed a small batch of potions forward. These potions, half are to be taken orally, the other half applied topically, twice a day. Take them on time, and roughly in 2 days, your vision should start to recover. Of course, if you want more effective potions, the price will need to be tenfold. Time to settle the bill, including surgery fees, potion costs, and nursing fees. You've already paid for the eye charges. In total, it's 546 skull coins. If this is no issue, sign here. Lin looked up. His eyes, lifeless, conveyed friendly. A fingerprint will do. The pigfolk, with trembling hands, pressed a fingerprint onto the report. He tremulously took a large money bag from his bosom and placed over 500 skull coins on the counter, asking, "May I leave now?" Lin counted the coins. He lifted his head. His gaze fell upon the pigfolk's still bulging money bag. However, the next moment, his attention was drawn to his swelling belly. The pigfolk turned to leave. Lin abruptly reached out, stopping him. Wait. It was evident. The pigfolk's body subconsciously shuddered. What now? He turned back. I've discerned some new problems within you, if not diagnosed. They might inflict unknown impacts on your body. The pigfolk, gritting his tusks, retorted, "Don't you dare deceive me. I despise being lied to the most." Lin, grave, responded, "I am a doctor, I do not deceive. Everyone who enters my shop is my patient. I must be responsible for my patient's health. If I see an issue and do not communicate it to you, that is truly a lack of medical ethics." Facing Lin's stern and earnest eyes, the pigfolk, albeit with significant reluctance, finally sat back down on the stool in front of the counter, his voice laden with uncertainty. "What's the problem?" "I feel very healthy." "Extend your arm, I'll take your pulse." The pigfolk hesitantly placed his arm, laden with pig hair, on the counter. In the end, he decided to trust him once more. Lin, his expression serene, placed his hand on his pulse, feeling it carefully. Gradually, the pigfolk noticed Lin's brows furrowing. His heart instantly rose to his throat. "Is this really a major issue?" he asked nervously. What he feared most was a doctor frowning before him, because that certainly boded not well. Lin withdrew his hand, raised his head to look solemnly at the pigfolk. His brows still furrowed. "The issue is neither minor nor severe. It depends on how it's dealt with." The pigfolk, anxiously, "What is the problem?" "Ectopic pregnancy." Brief silence and waves of cool wind whooshed in from the door. The next moment, the pigfolk roared, abruptly seized Lin by the collar, lifting his in his fury. He bellowed, "Ectopic pregnancy. You bloody saying I have an ectopic pregnancy. I'm bloody male. I'm giving you one more chance to organize your words." Lin's expression remained tranquil. Adjusting his eyeball, he stated solemnly, "The pulse is revealing as such. There is no mistake. You must trust my medical proficiency." The pigfolk roared, "I am male. I don't have a uterus." Lin nodded, solemnly responding, "That's why it's said to be an ectopic pregnancy. If there was a uterus, it would be more troublesome, necessitating more profound gender correction surgery, and your burden would be heavier." The pigfolk, trembling, released Lin's collar and slumped down onto the stool. "What are you thinking about?" "I am thinking about how to chop you up." The pigfolk, his eyes brimming with anger and shame, gnashed his teeth. "Let's not consider such irrelevant matters first." Lin straightened his collar, sat in front of the counter, took out a medical record, and quietly asked, "Have you recently experienced abdominal distension and pain, dry heaving, loss of appetite, bleeding below, etc.?" The pigfolk, slamming the table and standing up, endured his trembling and humiliation and questioned, "Tell me how I bleed below. How do I bleed?" Lin continued his documentation, adjusting his eyeball, stating, "Please, patient, refrain from agitation. It's merely a standard inquiry. Excluding bleeding, have any of these symptoms occurred?" The pigfolk, his eyes nearly bursting and teeth gritting, replied, "What if they have? Can't I just be food poisoning?" Lin, adjusting his eyeball, glanced at him, asking, "How long have these been occurring?" The pigfolk, grinding his teeth, replied, 1 month. Lin continued to document, calmly inquiring, "When was the last time you engaged in mating behavior? Do you have any adverse habits normally, like multiple pig activities or using certain harmful implements?" The pigfolk stood there, arms incessantly shivering, stating, "You try asking one more time." Clearly, he was extremely angered by this question. Lin calmly extended his hand to stop him, stating, "All right, I won't ask this question anymore. Next question." During your most recent mating behavior, did you feel below? Lin frowned, made a tearing gesture, and asked, a tearing pain. The pigfolk truly could endure no more this time. He seized Lin by the collar, his anger mingled with embarrassment as he roared, I've bloody well put up with you for too long. Translate for me, what is tearing pain? Translate it for me, what is tearing pain? Lin extended his hand, firmly pressing against his chest, shaking his head, calm down. Further confirmation requires the assistance of professional equipment. This is just a process I, as a doctor, must follow, fundamentally for the sake of your health. It's for your own good. You wouldn't want any lingering maladies, would you? The pigfolk puffed angrily through his nostrils, his chest heaving violently. His face flushed with rage, but finally, under Lin's soothing, he let go. Lin, once again straightening his collar and putting down his pen, glanced at him and shook his head. Although I do know that males, most likely, can't get pregnant, the pulse does indeed relay the signs of pregnancy, so I speculate if you didn't impregnate yourself through normal mating activities. Seeing that the pigfolk was about to explode in anger again, Lin spoke faster. There's another possibility. You might have inadvertently consumed something containing strange powers, causing a mutation within you and indirectly leading to your impregnation. Because I see you're looking unwell, with dark circles under your eyes, a pallor to your face, and your wrists are cold. Have you been unable to satiate your hunger no matter how much you have eaten recently, and often feeling famished? The pigfolk hesitated, then sat down again. Although previous words have been unreliable, this indeed hit the nail on the head. He had indeed been feeling hunger recently, and even binge eating and drinking were unable to alleviate the hunger. How do you know? Lin, without showing any emotion, stood up, brought out a wooden basin from behind the house, filled it with clear water, and then from below the counter took out a bottle of light green potion and poured it into the basin. Whoosh! A strand of green smoke, shaped like a skull, whirled up from the basin. Lin clapped his hands, saying, this is a spirit summoning potion. Place your hand inside. If this indeed is a malevolent spirit parasitizing inside you or these odd mutations, this potion can reveal some truths. The pigfolk glanced at him hesitantly. He stuck out his snout to sniff. After ensuring that there seemed to be no danger, he still tried to put his hand into the basin. In an instant, he immediately felt a chill slowly rising from his abdomen. What is this? His face altered slightly. The green water in the basin began to bubble continuously, and strands of eerie black aura gradually emerged from his body. And it was the next moment. Suddenly, his abdomen twisted in pain, and a giggling face protruded from his belly. Thithithia. The pigfolk's hair stood on end. My stomach. His belly began to deform continuously. The face seemed to struggle as if trying to crawl out. And gradually, beside the face, two protruding hands emerged on his belly. The giggling sound suddenly changed eerily and transformed into wails. Wah. Seeing this, the pigfolk was entirely undone. What the hell is this thing? Ben. Lin decisively took up the frying pan next to his and smashed it against the protruding face, flattening his stomach. The wailing and giggling abruptly ceased. Thump. The pigfolk plopped down on the bench, his expression blank. This. Lin pushed the wooden basin aside and calmly said, preliminary diagnosis confirms it indeed is a type of ectopic pregnancy due to a parasitic evil spirit. However, seeing the effect of that blow just now, this little devil has not fully formed yet. You are really lucky to have met me. At this, the pigfolk were thoroughly convinced. He dropped to his knees with a thumped, trembling, young man. My attitude was too intense just now. Please, don't take it to heart. Please save me. Please save me. It was truly scared. If it were a real evil spirit and he had to fight it head on, he would be fearless. But it was growing inside his stomach. He was really helpless. Lin, calmly holding a pen, said, do you remember eating anything unclean? The pigfolk trembled. A month ago, when I was out, I remember I ate a child. But it was just a little ghost. I sucked it in one breath. Besides that, I only eat pork and human flesh. Lin pondered for a moment. Then he lifted his head and seriously said, let's perform surgery to see. Moments later, inside the dimly lit operating room, a few candles and a couple of bronze mirrors cast light onto the pigfolk's greasy big belly. The pigfolk, trembling, lay on that extremely uncomfortable operating table and said, so hastily you decide to operate on me. Though you plan to diagnose a bit more thoroughly. Lin put on gloves and a mask, calmly sterilizing the surgical knife, saying, simplicity and crudeness are the truths. You have to believe in my diagnostic ability and moral standards. I'll make an incision on your stomach. If it can be cut off, I'll cut it off for you. If it cannot be cut off, the pigfolk trembled, I'll cut you. Lin shook his head. He took out the boning knife often used by his teachers and started sharpening it in front of him. The pigfolk lay thighs blankly, looking at the one after another iron hook hanging down from the ceiling of the operating room, and the various terrifying monster tissues soaking in large jars around. For some reason, he felt like a boar about to be slaughtered on a chopping board. Sparks were flying. Stop sharpening. Stop sharpening. The pigfolk, unable to bear the harsh sound of sharpening, issued a roaring urge. Soon, Lin washed the sharpened surgical knife in disinfectant. When he picked it up again, it was shining sharply against the light. Lin walked to the side of the pigfolk with the knife and put his ear to his greasy belly to listen. Then he professionally took out a pencil in a position lower on his stomach. He drew a cross. Lin calmly said, "Are you ready?" The pigfolk trembled. "Ready." Lin pressed a button under the operating table, and the pigfolk's limbs were immediately locked by 4 iron shackles. The pigfolk screamed in horror. Lin frowned and said with the knife in his hand, "Don't yell, I haven't even started the operation. These handcuffs are to prevent you from struggling and affecting my surgical ability. It's for your own good." The pigfolk trembled. "Have you ever performed surgery on others before?" Lin calmly sharpened the knife, saying, "I've seen my teacher slaughter pigs. You are my first patient. But it's more or less the same. I am very confident in my surgical ability." A moment of silence. I won't do it. I won't do it. Release me. Release me." The pigfolk roared and struggled frantically. Lin's eyes instantly became fierce, and he shouted loudly, "What a joke. The knife is already sharpened, and now you say you won't do it. Aren't you afraid that your stomach will get bigger and bigger and then be burst open by the evil spirit? Since you are on my operating table, I must be responsible for you. Today, you have to do it whether you want to or not." A scream was extremely miserable. Half an hour later, the pigfolk lay this in a stupor on the operating table, his body constantly twitching. He had already lost count of how many times he had passed out and woken up due to the pain. And just the next moment, a clear cry of a baby echoed throughout the operating room. Lin, covered in blood, took a blood-covered, seemingly underdeveloped crying blood baby from his stomach, showing a satisfied smile on his face, wiped his sweat, and said, "Congratulations, father and daughter are safe." In front of him, a page about the baby appeared instantly. "Chaotic evil." The pigfolk muttered blankly, "Sew it up." Lin nodded. Then he brought out the bill, pondered, and said, "Although this isn't the best time, it still needs to be discussed. The total surgical fee is 300 skull coins, but since this is my first time, I can give you a 20% discount, totaling 240 skull coins. The sewing fee is separate, summing up to 280 coins. Would you sign here?" Oink, oink. The pigfolk let out mournful pig-like screams, his spirit nearly broken. "Sew it, sew it." He trembled. Lin nodded, and pointing at various threads on the wall, said, "We have hemp thread, wool thread, cotton thread, wire, and steel wire here, each with a different price. Which one would you like?" A tear fell from the corner of the pigfolk's eye. He mumbled, "Hemp thread." Lin nodded, took down the hemp thread, and asked, "Do you need anything else?" So, he roared. Lin nodded, expertly picked up his steel needle, flicked the hemp thread, and approached the pigfolk, biting and pulling the end of the thread. "Be patient, bear with it a little, I'm starting now." Finally, 10 minutes later, Lin took out scissors, cut the thread, patted the knot on it, poured medicine into his mouth, and sprayed it on his abdomen. Instantly, the sewn flesh started to close bit by bit, healing quickly. Lin removed his mask, unlocked the handcuffs on the operating table, held the blood-soaked infant, and smiled, saying, "Congratulations, the surgery went very smoothly. As you saw, this was indeed a routine case of spirit parasitism. Although it was a demonic spirit, it was indeed a healthy daughter. If raised, perhaps, Buzz." For a moment, Lin only felt a blur before his eyes. Then he saw a quivering shadow abruptly dash from the operating table, clutching his abdomen, fleeing towards the door with unimaginable speed. He won't come again. He swore he would absolutely never come again. Undergoing surgery was like being butchized like a pig. This one doctor's visit has left him with psychological trauma. "Boss, you've forgotten your daughter, the one you went through such pains to bring into this world. You can't just give birth and not care for her. This is a potion shop, not a childcare center." Lin dashed forward, shouting, chasing all the way to the main door. Yet, upon looking again, there was no trace of that pigfolk in the darkness. Lin heaved a sigh. After a moment's contemplation, he shouted into the enigmatic darkness, "Boss, if your stomach gives you more trouble, come back and I'll cut you open again. Next time, I promise I'll use anesthesia. And by the way, come get your newborn daughter soon." If my teacher returns, he might just chop her up to accompany his drink. Instantly, the previously bustling darkness became eerily silent. Lin turned on his heel and went back to his potion shop. Without wasting any time, he rushed to the counter, rummaging through drawers beneath to find a small vial of a potent healing potion. He then quickly poured it over his right eye. The eye, which he had brutally gouged out, gradually regained its vitality. It still hurt, but the effect was undeniable. Rubbing his inflamed eye socket, Lin murmured, "Living in this world is indeed a constant state of anxiety." The reason he dared to gouge out his own eye wasn't out of sheer ruthlessness. He was aware that his shop housed advanced potions capable of rapidly healing injuries. However, these were luxury items, beyond his crafting skills. They were part of his teacher's private collection, meant for personal use and not for sale. Lin paused momentarily before accessing the system panel. "Lin, what does this last comment mean? Isn't this insulting? It's not objective or fair at all, except for not using anesthesia. He was very responsible for his patients. This is simply the system's malicious mockery of him." Lin shook his head. However, he quickly noticed that he had leveled up. He had moved from level 2 to level 3 and gained 4 additional assignable points. Have to say, from this point of view, the panel provided by this system really feels like it's from a low-quality online game. But clearly, this isn't a game. This is a vicious and dark alternative world where death is real. Lin didn't hesitate. He assigned all 4 points to physique. No other reason. To become a qualified doctor, one must have a strong physical constitution, especially in this chaotic world. A frail body can always become the last straw, endangering one's life. After all, survival is the first element in this world. Confirm. Instantly, Lin immediately felt a warm flow moving within his body. He knew those 4 attribute points were beginning to take effect. Subtly, the fatigue from the recent surgery was quickly swept away by this warm flow, replaced by inexhaustible strength. He took off his coat. He looked at his abdomen. Within those short few minutes, his originally flat abdomen now showed the contours of several abdominal muscles. Lin felt the beauty of having a healthy body. From the counter behind him came the crying of the ghost baby. Lin immediately went to the counter, holding the bloody ghost baby, and took a look. And this look revealed a problem. Due to its underdevelopment, it's roughly the size of 4 adult fists. A long umbilical cord wrapped around its waist. Its body was covered with streaks of crimson blood vessels, and on its cheeks, other than a mouth that resembled a black hole, the rest of the face was like covered in a layer of flesh mud, smooth without any features. Lin, just now, this ghost baby was at level 1, and in such a short time, it has actually risen to level 2. Does that mean this ghost baby is rapidly forming? At this moment, a system prompt sounded in his mind. Lin calmly looked at the 4 mission branches the system provided. Of course, it's the 4th one. Lin sat on the counter, put the ghost baby on the table, and seriously said while doing his calculations, "I am a doctor. If someone leaves their child here, and I butcher and destroy it, wouldn't that make me a monster? My moral standard doesn't allow me to do such a thing. As a person with such professional ethics, don't you plan to add something to me, system?" Lin, knife in hand, continued to wait for new customers. 2 minutes later, he opened his eyes and glanced at the ghost baby. He discovered its appearance had already started distorting into a grim twist. 5 minutes later, when he looked again, the baby's face began to grow various large and small blood tumors, and raspy noises came out of its dark mouth. 10 minutes later, when Lin opened his eyes again, that face was already crawling with numerous large and small twisted tentacles and black, intestine-like distortions. Lin's eye corner was twitching crazily. It seems what the system said was indeed correct. If left unchecked, this ghost baby is really becoming more and more indescribable. This can't go on. If it continues like this, not to mention whether the pigfolk would recognize his daughter or not, he himself can't bear it anymore. Too ugly. It's really damn too ugly. It's the kind of horrifyingly ugly. Lin stood up, stretched his wrists, and said, "Fine, consider yourself lucky. Let me give you free plastic surgery, so you stop scaring me now and scaring others in the future." He put on a mask and gloves. He took a rope and tied the ghost baby to the counter. The twisted tentacles on the ghost baby's face suddenly mutated into countless mouths, letting out terrifying roars at Lin. Slap! Lin slapped those tentacles back with one smack. Behave. He stretched out both hands, grabbed the wildly twisted tentacles on its face, and kneaded them forcefully as if kneading dough. Wah, wah, cries resembling fear emanated from the ghost baby's body. Plastic surgery is a technical job. Although Lin had never performed plastic surgery on anyone before, his skills in molding clay were quite proficient. In some sense, these two seemed not much different. then the first step of plastic surgery, naturally, is to mix all the messy viscous substances on the face evenly and make it sufficiently smooth. Only in this way can it lay a perfect foundation for subsequent face molding. The kneading dough also requires enough skills. It can't be too dry or too wet. You have to ensure it has enough elasticity and toughness. This is also a process that greatly tests hand strength. Don't move. Since I delivered you, as a doctor, I have an obligation to ensure your well-being during this time. Don't worry, your facial issues are in my hands. Lin, with a serious face, utilized the noodle-making skills he had before traversing to another world. And after kneading the substance on the ghost baby's face well, he pulled it outwards, twisted it and pressed it back in, then pulled again, twisted it twice and pressed it back inside. He thoroughly mixed all that viscous and nauseating substance until it became uniform and elastic, and the sounds coming from the ghost baby's body became more and more terrifying. Thump, thump, thump. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. A humanoid monster covered in burn scars, with a pus-filled face stood there. The crimson, foul-smelling slime kept flowing from his eye sockets. Horrifying and eerie. I want a new face. A deep and hoarse voice came from the monster's throat. Lin took a glance. Welcome. Please have a seat over there and wait for a moment. Lin leaned out from in front of the ghost baby, a standard professional smile in his eyes. Splat. The thick fluid from the burst face of the ghost baby splashed onto Lin's mask. The bird ghost who just walked in suddenly stiffened. Please sit. I'll be ready soon. Lin smiled. Then his attention returned to the ghost baby tied on the counter. To speed up the process, Lin had to use both hands. He grabbed both sides of the kneaded flesh ball and pulled it forcefully. Wow! A horrifying, fearful sound came from within the ghost baby. He twisted it into a braid, then pressed it back onto the face. The ghost baby trembled. Lin flattened the ghost baby and, using more force, started kneading the twisted flesh on its face. I'll be done soon. Please be patient. Lin, with a smile, lifted his head and showed a sincere expression to the burnt ghost sitting not far away on a chair. The burnt ghost stared blankly at the horror happening on the counter. Its legs subconsciously started to tremble. Swish, swish. The face of that ghost was rolled flat, and it screeched in terror. The pus-filled blisters all over the burnt ghost started to tremble. Something's wrong. Something's very wrong. This potion shop he entered seems to be not right at all. It stretched out its burnt hand tremblingly, saying, May I ask? Are you? At his words, Lin, while kneading the flesh on the ghost baby's face, lifted his head, a sincere professional smile on his face, saying, Oh, this little ghost is too ugly, even somewhat contaminatingly ugly. As a doctor, giving it a normal face is something I should do. The burnt ghost shivered all over. He said numbly, Your technique is indeed unique. He stiffened all over, the burnt eyes staring widely, and the hunched body straightened at some point. He watched the ghost baby's face in the hands of the doctor, being kneaded like noodles. His legs trembled even more. Horrifying images of his face being constantly pulled and stretched by this doctor immediately surfaced in his mind. The bird ghost began to feel frightened. Originally, he saw the old freak from Bloodsaw Potion Shop leave today, so he wanted to try his luck, hoping to treat his burns with slightly less fear. But who knew that after the old freak left, a little freak remained. He, shivering, stared at the ghost baby lying on the counter, convulsing, its face almost a black mush. Could it be? Is this what awaits me next? He murmured, and at that moment, from behind the cloth curtain of the backyard came successive, piercing noises of a chainsaw being pulled. The bird ghost, clutching his head, was so frightened that it felt like his bones would fall apart. A chainsaw. It's a chainsaw. Didn't he say he was going to the backyard to get some tools? Why would this be the sound of a chainsaw from the backyard? What are you doing with a chainsaw? In his mind, the image of a chainsaw murderer with a twisted smile on his face, walking step by step towards him, appeared. Black smoke released from his head, and then, in the next moment, his ears perked. Thud, thud. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. That person, carrying a chainsaw, was walking towards Highs. A shadow gradually appeared on the cloth curtain leading to the backyard, and the sound of the rotating chainsaw seemed almost at the forefront. The bird ghost, terrified, clutched his head, values constantly floating above it. The next moment, the bird ghost, with his sanity reduced to zero, scurried toward the exit in terror, tumbling and scrambling. A gangster store. Kelp, Lin. He lifted the curtain, astonished, gazing at the ashes left by the bird ghost who crawled his way out, saying, What happened? I just went to sharpen the surgical knife because it wasn't sharp enough. Why did you leave suddenly? And what's with his fear of me plus 400? Why is he extremely terrified of me? I have always adhered to the principle of service with a smile. I've been very polite. And I'm so serious about the guests, shouldn't this elicit a more favorable attitude toward me? Lin is puzzled. Well, he's gone now, Lin sighed regretfully. Anyway, let's deal with this ghost baby first. Ding, the small, sharp carving knife in Lin's hand gleamed dazzlingly. An hour later, Lin sat in front of the counter, his face full of satisfying smiles, lowering his knife and looking at the ghost baby sitting before his. Isn't it much more pleasing to the eye now? Cherry lips, chubby cheeks, big eyes, delicate nose. What was once a horrifying, indescribable mass of distortion had now, under Lin's meticulous carving, become cute and lifelike. Before traversing, Lin always ranked first in his handicraft class. Every clay portrait he sculpted received unanimous praise from his classmates. Lin smiled, feeling pleased. At this moment, a vertical pupil suddenly grew on the forehead of the ghost baby. Thought, Lin bursted instantly. He closed his eyes and said, "This is not the place for eyes to grow. This is a face I've painstakingly shaped. If you want to ruin it, don't blame me for cutting you again." Lin paused. So, this can also trigger a hidden task. It seems that many functions of this system still need to be explored. The next moment, 5 long strands of hair appeared in his hand. Descriptions of the 5 strands of hair immediately appeared before his eyes. Lin touched his chin. This seems to be a good defensive item, but these are only 5 strands, so I'll need to use them thoughtfully. Lin stored the hair strands away, sat in front of the counter, and quietly waited for the next customer to visit. Of course, his attention was always on the ghost doll in front of him. As soon as it showed any sign of degradation, Lin immediately pressed it back and adjusted it again. Time flew quickly. The light of the soul lamp outside the door gradually dimmed, and this also meant that the night of this world was about to fall. The method to distinguish between day and night in this dark world is to look at the light of the soul lamp, as it will not light up at night in this world. And this means, without the protection of the soul lamp, any monster can freely enter his shelter and tear him to pieces. Just as the light was dimming, and Lin was about to close up shop. Knock, knock, knock. Then came a knocking sound from outside the door. A tall man appeared there, wearing a thick, black cloak, a black top hat, and a head of long gray-white hair. The huge shadow projected from the door, giving a strong sense of oppression out of thin air. Lin's heart suddenly tightened, because the panel of that person appeared before his eyes. This seems to be a human. This was the first human he had encountered in this dark world in the past 2 years. Judging by the display, this was a being of explosive combat capability. "I require healing, as well as some battle potions and recovery elixirs." From beneath the large top hat came the raspy voice of a middle-aged man. Lin instantly rose to his feet, a professional smile decorating his face, saying, "Welcome, please come in." The demon hunter strode through the main entrance, the soul lamp hanging by the door flickering frantically, nearly extinguishing. This also indicated the extraordinary strength of the demon hunter. The demon hunter sat at the counter, lifting his head to scrutinize Lin. Immediately, Lin felt his skin burn with pain. A mere glance inflicted harm, illustrating the strength of this man. "I didn't expect to encounter another of my kind, alive, in this dark world," the demon hunter remarked with a fleeting glance. He detached a flask from his waist, took a sip, and a strong, pungent aroma of liquor hit the air. A thud resonated in Lin's heart. The moment he saw the task failure penalty pop up, he sensed misfortune. And indeed, it was just as he predicted. The demon hunter wandering the dark world would harbor no goodwill towards any monster, and fortunately, he was also human. Otherwise, this powerful man would have surely cleaved him in two. Lin steadied his emotions. He calmly looked at the demon hunter, smiling. "May I ask which of your wounds you would like me to heal?" Beneath the high hat, the pair of pallid lips moved slightly, and then he removed his cloak, turning around. In an instant, Lin's pupils contracted. His entire shoulder was a bleak shade of dark red. Upon it congealed lump after lump of dark blood, looking utterly ferocious. The injuries could only be described as horrifying, and Lin immediately wondered what kind of being could have inflicted such wounds on this demon hunter. The demon hunter spoke in a raspy voice. "I was ambushed by a red-clothed evil spirit and nearly lost my life. I won't let her go, but first, I need to heal my wounds." "Black butterfly," Lin hesitated. The demon hunter shifted slightly, sneering. "You actually know this poison. It seems I have underestimated you." Lin chuckled dryly. No, he didn't know. He merely subconsciously repeated the key term from the system prompt. "System, what is the black butterfly?" he asked inwardly. Lin shuddered. Without another word, he donned a full set of protective gear, including a mask and gloves. "Can I cure it?" he asked the system internally. Lin raised 2 boning knives, earnestly saying, "We need to conduct a surgical debridement first." The demon hunter hesitated for a moment, asking, "How proficient are you in surgery?" Lin nodded. "Rest assured, my experience is very extensive. Although this is only my 2nd time performing surgery, my previous patient gave me high praise. I have confidence." The demon hunter clearly paused for a while, seemingly weighing the pros and cons. Then Lin heard the hesitating voice from beneath the tall hat. "Are there any other medical shops nearby?" Lin sharpened his 2 boning knives, laughing heartily. "There should be none left, and even if there were, they probably would have been eradicated by my teacher. We don't allow the existence of a second medical shop around here, ha ha." A fleeting silence prevailed, the wind whistling as it danced with the cloak of the demon hunter. He then turned, baring his shoulder, and with closed eyes declared, "Fine, I'll trust you this once, proceed with the blade." "Alrighty." A satisfied grin bloomed on Lin's face. 2 large knives clanged and scraped against each other in his hands. Plain, sparks flew. It was faintly visible that beneath the shadow of that tall hat, the craggy corner of the demon hunter's bearded mouth twitched slightly. For some unknown reason, he felt as if he had wandered into the wrong place. It didn't look like a medical shop at all, but rather more like a butcher's shop. Was it just his illusion? Why did this seemingly weak lad always give off an urge to turn around and run immediately? "Do you need anesthesia?" Lin excitedly asked, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "No need." The demon hunter took a sip of his drink, glanced at him, and calmly stated, "Anesthesia would only affect my neural reflex speed. A true man never uses anesthesia." With a snap, Lin gave a thumbs up, earnestly responding, "Great, I have never used anesthesia on anyone. It seems we are truly in sync." The jolt went through the demon hunter's heart. What had he just said? However, before he could react, the sound of the blade entering the flesh resounded, and his entire body instantly stiffened. He cranked his head around, gazing at the knife embedded in his shoulder, and mumbled in a daze, "Has it started?" Lin calmly replied, "No, just testing the knife." "Oh." The demon hunter turned his head again, in a daze, his hand reaching subconsciously for his wine flask, intending to take another sip. But for some unknown reason, the hand holding the flask trembled slightly. There shouldn't be any big problem. This kid might seem unreliable, but he surely wouldn't dare play any tricks and offend a distinguished demon hunter. Plunge. The demon hunter. "What the hell are you doing now?" The demon hunter turned his head, his eyes glaring, beholding another knife embedded in his shoulder. Lin seriously held his toolbox, stating, selecting tools of appropriate size, "I'll leave those 2 in his spares." The demon hunter, his eyes nearly bursting, retorted, "Can't your spares be placed beside? Must you stick them in my shoulder?" Lin shook his head, calmly explaining, "Sir, I am testing the sharpness of the surgical knives. You should be aware if a knife is not sharp, the pain induced while cutting would be more severe, which is extremely undesirable. So, as a doctor, I must ensure my knives perfectly suit your flesh, and the places where the knives are inserted will be cut off anyway. You don't need to be overly concerned about the condition of your shoulder." The demon hunter was petrified in place. Damn, that made sense. But did he really do this unintentionally? Why did it sound so unreasonable no matter how he heard it? "Stop measuring." His teeth ground together, one hand tightly clutching the wine jug, he commanded, "Use these 2 knives and tend to my wounds immediately. If you dawdle, I'll end you on the spot." He revealed the shining revolver tied around his waist. "But, no buts, proceed to the next step immediately." He slapped the table, his expression fierce. "Very well." Len emerged, carrying a furnace. He stirred the coals inside with a knife, then plunged various tools from the counter into it. "What are you doing?" The demon hunter's eyes twitched involuntarily. Lin calmly picked up a red-hot knife, sterilizing. The black butterfly is an extremely aggressive, corrosive poison. To prevent the venom from accidentally seeping into your other tissues during the cleaning process, the best method is to use high temperatures to kill it. It might hurt a bit, but it's exceptionally effective. Cling. Lin tapped the red-hot surgical knife, sparks flying. "Have you ever done this before?" He hesitated. Lin seriously replied, "I haven't personally, but I spent 2 years with my master, and I've seen him do it." The demon hunter sighed in relief. Lin, especially when slaughtering pigs and plucking hairs, with a sweep of the red-hot knife, they all come off neatly. A few minutes later, Lin pulled the 2 red-hot knives from the furnace and calmly walked behind the demon hunter, firmly stating, "I'm going to start. It might hurt a bit, so bear with it." The demon hunter clenched his fists tightly, eyes closed, grinding his teeth. "I can certainly bear it. But I just want to ask, what the hell are all these plates on the counter for? Cooking, he roared, pointing to the plates on the counter before him. Lin seriously replied, "You're overthinking it, sir. These plates are to hold the necrotic flesh that will be cut away shortly because we must administer the appropriate regenerative potion based on the amount of flesh removed. Otherwise, if the dosage is not calculated correctly, it could lead to unnecessary tissue growth on your shoulder. This is for your own good." The demon hunter gritted his teeth. Start cutting? If it wasn't for the fact that this was the only potion shop within hundreds of kilometers, he swore he would never set foot in this damn place, because it always felt like a trap. "All right, I'm going to begin." Lin's expression was serious. In an instant, thud, thud, the sound of knives entering flesh resounded, followed by the continuous sounds of cutting and sizzling. It hurt. It hurt like a motherf. And it wasn't just the pain of being cut, but also the pain of being burned, even mixed with a hint of aching. Damn it, it also had layered pain like minced meat. If it hurts, it's not too late to administer an anesthetic, Len advised seriously. At the same time, he wondered why he was gaining experience in knife skills instead of surgical skills. "Get lost," the demon hunter roared. "Where do you see that I am in pain? I am not hurting at all, okay?" The demon hunter shivered, hugging the counter, his face pale and trembling. "Could you please loosen your grip on my counter and move the nails embedded in the edge of the table? It's made of fine antique wood and is very expensive." The demon hunter roared. "I'll pay you double. What's the big deal? You won't even let me grab something. Cut harder. If you dawdle, I'll chop off your hands." When, seriously holding the knives, said, "I've been waiting for you to say that, then I'll really start cutting." The demon hunter shivered. "Hold on. God, my God." He immediately saw, one after another, pieces of blackened, meat-scented necrotic flesh neatly flying onto the plate. And based on these fluid knife skills, whether it was peeling or cutting meat, it was indeed impeccable. Anyone who saw it would involuntarily give a thumbs up. "But, are you performing surgery on me, or are you quartering me?" The demon hunter, banging on the table, roared, his eyes rolling back, and his body sweating like rain. Stop it right now." Seeing this, Lin also became anxious. He slammed the table, furiously saying, "Why are you so talkative? You're unhappy when I cut slow, unhappy when I cut fast, and you don't want anesthesia? What do you want?" The demon hunter held the counter tightly and roared, "Can't you just gouge it out at once? Why do you have to slice it piece by piece? Are you afraid I'll leave too hastily?" Lin retorted. "If it's done in one go, wouldn't it become a one-cut deal?" Lin glared. "What I'm saying is that things need to be done meticulously. Cutting it off with one stroke might be fast, but if it hits a major artery, I assure you, you'll leave even more hastily. I am a doctor, a white-cloaked angel. You have to trust me. I treat my patients like my own children. I would never allow my children to pass away without receiving treatment." The demon hunter, trembling, lips parted, finally couldn't help but roar, "Cut, just cut. I'll never come to this damned shop again. Don't worry, after I perform the surgery, you will definitely fall in love with my knife." 10 minutes later, the demon hunter, like a dead pig, was hugging the counter and lying there, his mouth continuously bubbling with foam. Eyes rolled back so much that almost no iris was visible. His body twitching. He felt as if he had had a dream. There was a demon behind him holding 2 sharp knives, with a ferocious smile, slicing him into pieces, even placing his flesh in front of him, letting him appraise. "All right, the preliminary debridement is complete." Lin picked up the liquor he had placed on the table, mixed it with some medical alcohol, and gargled it in his mouth. Then, with a puff, he sprayed it onto the wound on his shoulder. The demon hunter was suddenly jolted awake from his swoon, his senses brutally assaulted by the explosive impact of the strong liquor and alcohol combination. Trembling and shivering, he extended his hand and ceaselessly crawled forward, saying, enough, let me go right now." Lin was earnestly sharpening his knife, his voice lighthearted. "My dear guest, we've just completed the debridement and disinfection. Our most crucial step is yet to come. Quick, take a look." During your faint, to help ease your tension a bit, I specially crafted a pattern for you. Take a look, isn't it quite nice? The demon hunter turned his head in horror and trembled as he looked at the wound on his shoulder. In an instant, the demon hunter was completely undone. On his shoulder, over the black bones, a chic red heart was discernibly carved, looking rather darn cute. "Did you feel a bit more relaxed?" Lin asked seriously. The demon hunter said, "I'll kill you." The demon hunter, shivering, quickly drew a revolver from his waistband and aimed it at Lin. Swish! Lin's flying knife instantly pierced the barrel of the demon hunter's revolver as he spoke softly. "Dear guest, the surgery isn't finished. Killing me now would be the utmost irresponsibility to yourself. I am saving you, yet you want to kill me. Don't you find such behavior utterly disgraceful? Let me make it clear, I have medical ethics. Even if you want to kill me, you have to wait until I complete the surgery. I will absolutely not allow my patient to quit halfway. The demon hunter shivered. Bang, bang, bang. He fired a dozen shots at the ceiling. I warn you, don't carve any more patterns, don't dawdle. What is next? Lin raised the small knife in his hand and said seriously, bone scraping. Minutes later, the demon hunter, shivering, looked at the chains that Lin had procured from who knows where, chains that were now binding him from head to toe, making him resemble a large, tightly wrapped dumpling. Why bind me while you scrape? Do you really think these ordinary chains can restrain a demon hunter? You're too naive, Lin, his face stern, guessed. It's not that I wish to bind you, I simply fear that during the procedure, unable to bear the pain, you might lash out. My death would be insignificant, but if the surgery were to fail, it would be the greatest insult to me, and the utmost irresponsibility to yourself. Therefore, reluctantly, I have no choice but to resort to this. Lin moved behind him, raising his small knife with grave seriousness. Guest, I am about to scrape. You must endure. This time, the pain will be quite literally bone-piercing. The demon hunter, his mouth agape with terror, let out a long and eerie howl that could chill one to the bone. If the earlier wound cleaning felt like being minced, then this bone scraping was damnably like enduring hundreds of continuous uppercuts to one's vitals. You, fuck you, the demon hunter roared, struggling fiercely, the chains on his body about to be shattered by him. The demon hunter, with a howl that reached the heavens, shivered as he bit down on the chains, sparks flying everywhere. Anesthetic, administer it now. I can't take it anymore. I just can't. Lin, scraping, said, administering anesthetic now is pointless. I can't possibly inject it directly into your bone. Just endure a little longer. It'll be over soon. I'm not buying your bullshit. The demon hunter roared, instantly breaking the chains around him, and reached for his revolver on the counter. He wanted to blow Lin away with one shot. Seeing his actions, Lin grew frantic. Damn, unpainstakingly scraping your bone to heal you, and you're repeatedly trying to blow me away. It's simply outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Wen, acting first, seized his revolver and shoved it into his mouth, furiously stating, move one more time and see what happens. If you don't cooperate with my work, I'll blow your head off. Let me tell you, I am a doctor. You can insult my dignity, but you can't insult my compassion for the injured. Today, even if it kills me, I must heal you. Lin roared. The demon hunter, his mouth encompassing the barrel, howled to the heavens, tears streaming down his face. I can't do this anymore. I really don't want to do this anymore. Having roamed the dark world for years, enduring countless injuries, this was the first time he felt what it's like to be at a loss for life, what it's like to prefer death over life, at the hands of a doctor. Damn it, no more dawdling with you, time to bring out the big guns. Lin quickly rushed to the backyard, then swiftly, holding a chainsaw, he rushed back out, teeth clenched. What are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Don't come any closer. The demon hunter retreated in terror. Lin pulled the chainsaw's starter rope, and the chainsaw instantly emitted a buzzing sound. Your bones are too hard, scraping would take hours. With that spare time, might as well get it done in one go. Using this big guy on you is absolutely a case of a short pain being better than a long one. I'm going in. Wait. Buzz. Instantly, shrill and horrified screams pierced the sky. Boss, I want to buy some recovery potions. Do you have any new stock? Outside the door, a long-haired female ghost floated sideways, her body light, clearly not the unpleasant type of customer. But just as she reached the door, a hand instantly seized her ankle. Her expression froze instantly. Then she saw beneath the curtain a demon hunter, pale-faced and with trembling lips, clinging to the door threshold, his other hand clutching her ankle, tremblingly saying, "Save me, save me." Then, immediately, she heard the buzzing sound of a chainsaw from behind the curtain. She, stunned and trembling, extended a pale hand and gently lifted a corner of the curtain. In an instant, her long hair instantly rose in fright. Behind the curtain, a boy covered in blood, holding a chainsaw, was seen straddling the demon hunter, using the chainsaw to buzz against his shoulder. Sparks flew and bone dust scattered. Seeing the customer outside the curtain, Lin instantly lifted his head. His facial expression seamlessly switched to a professional smile, showing his clean teeth, saying, "Welcome, we have plenty of potions. Please come in and wait a moment. After I deal with this customer, I will get them for you. It won't take long." Ha ha. Lin let out a friendly laugh. The long-haired ghost held her head, letting out terrified long howls. Under Lin's stunned gaze, the long-haired female ghost screamed and limped into the black fog, holding her head. How did I become the customer scarer? I have always adhered to the principle of putting customers first, treating people with sincerity, and providing service with a smile. This darn system, you can't just give me weird achievements. Trying to escape, Lin pressed down the crawling demon hunter and went at him with the chainsaw. Never mind, let's cure this patient first. Buzz, God. Finally, several minutes later, with utmost satisfaction, Lin discarded the chainsaw, a smile adorning his features as he beheld the polished, pristine bone before him, and gently blowing on it, he spoke, "Dear guest, it is complete. The toxins that have corroded the surface of the bone have all been thoroughly purged by me. Now, all that's needed is a further regeneration of flesh and blood, and your arm shall be restored to its former glory." Lin wiped the sweat from his forehead. A genuine, glorious smile unveiled on his face, a smile that followed sincere toil. "Dear guest, are you satisfied with it?" Guest, perplexed, Lin turned his head. Immediately he saw the demon hunter's body convulsing non-stop, visible on his face. Countless white bubbles were churning in his mouth, and his eyes were rolled back so far that they were nearly unseen. Guest, dear guest. Over half an hour later, Lin stood there, listening dumbfounded to the absurd system prompt resounding in his mind. And on the operating table before him, the demon hunter finally started regaining consciousness from his mumblings. "Are you awake?" The moment he opened his eyes, reflected in them was Lin's professional smile. Propping himself up, almost reflexively, the demon hunter jumped up from the operating table in terror and fired several shots in Lin's direction. Stay away from me." He was trembling, holding a revolver, still in shock. Meanwhile, Lin, eyes wide, was pressed against the wall, his form distinctly outlined. A series of bullets had traced around him with uncanny precision, carving an immaculate silhouette. "Keep calm, honored guest, please keep calm. Forget those unpleasant memories. Rest assured, I've already healed your wounds." With outstretched hands, Lin spoke authoritatively. He subtly pushed the chainsaw at his feet aside with his foot, preventing the guest from associating it with some less than pleasant memories. The demon hunter was panting, struggling to calm his own emotions. Then, he turned his head to look at his shoulder. Wrapped in thick bandages, his shoulder, albeit still a bit stiff when moving, no longer bore the empty feeling of flesh scraped away, nor did it have the tearing sensation brought by the black butterfly's poison. It was as if that horrifying experience had been a dream. The demon hunter, astonished, asked, "So soon?" Lin seriously replied, "It's mostly healed. After removing the poisoned, damaged muscle tissue and superficial bone fragments from your shoulder, the remaining issue was how to rapidly regenerate your flesh." Lin held an empty potion bottle in his hand. "I used the best flesh regenerating potion we have. Plus, your physique is extraordinary and robust, so most of the missing flesh has already grown back. Only a small part in the center, which was too far from the surrounding flesh, was filled with a bit of other meat. But don't worry, I've eliminated any rejection." The demon hunter froze. He hastily unwrapped the bandage on his shoulder. His shoulder indeed seemed to have fully recovered, even looking somewhat tender, and at the center of the wound, one could vaguely see some flesh with a different color from the surrounding skin. Pale and delicate, a strand of hair was standing upright on it. The demon hunter instantly flew into a rage and grabbed Lin by the collar, glaring, his teeth grinding. Lin quickly raised both hands, signaling his innocence. "Guest, the process might have been a bit unpleasant, but the result is quite perfect, isn't it?" Lin blinked, his will to survive at its peak. "And I assure you, if there are any relaxes in the future, you can come to me anytime for a second service. Absolutely satisfying." The demon hunter trembled. "Second service? You still want to provide me a second service?" "Guest," Lin solemnly said, "I am a doctor, and while there were some minor hiccups during the treatment, think about it. Compared to dying from the black butterfly's poison spreading and rotting the whole body, what's a little pain from bone scraping? Staying alive is more important than anything." Finally, under Lin's cascade of noxious consolation, the demon hunter reluctantly let go of Lin's collar, gritting his teeth. The demon hunter took a deep breath, let Lin go, and said through clenched teeth, "Indeed worthy of being my kind, being able to survive in this dark world. Truly capable. This tormenting technique is indeed top-notch." Lin rubbed the back of his head, smiling sheepishly. You flatter me. Do you think I'm praising you?" The demon hunter once again grabbed Lin by the collar, his eyes filled with rage, his teeth grinding. "Have you ever performed surgery on anyone before?" Lin quickly shook his head, raising 3 fingers earnestly. "I swear I have. I just performed a cesarean section. Both father and child are safe. They even gave me a leg." The demon hunter was taken aback. "So, after performing a C-section, you dared to scrape my bone to heal my injury?" He really wished he could tear this young man to shreds here and now. However, he finally restrained himself, because, indeed, though the process wasn't very pleasant, this guy did heal his injury. He took another deep breath, suppressing the frantic and irritable emotions within his heart. He let Lin go, staring seriously into his eyes. He gritted his teeth and closed his eyes, warning, "Remember this, if I hear any rumors outside about me passing out here, you should know the consequences. Do you understand?" The demon hunter took a deep breath, put on his hat, and then took out a money bag from his bosom. Grinding his teeth, he asked, "How much is the surgery fee?" "You name your price." Lin immediately shook his head, offering a sincere, adorable smile, and clasping his hands together. "No need to pay. Consider this surgery a treat from a fellow kind. Just patronize our shop more in the future. Don't think that by currying favor with me, I'll forget what just happened. Even considering you as my kind, it's the same. And I advise you, it's best not to linger here. Creatures like us humans, if without some means of survival, are destined to become monsters' prey sooner or later." Seeing this, Lin immediately knew an opportunity had arisen. Though this demon hunter often seemed eager to eliminate him, he was quite fair when it came to dealing with their own kind. At the very least, he hadn't actually killed him. "Then, how can I leave this world?" Lin immediately inquired. "To be honest, I stumbled into this world by sheer accident, and apart from this little shop, I know nothing of the outside world." The demon hunter, tidying his glossy black hair, gave a cold laugh and said, "Ha, you're fortunate in a way. There are many like you who have fallen here from various worlds, but most of them end up as the monster's prey. I can only tell you this is the lowest level of sinful city. If you want to leave this world, apart from death, the only way is to become strong enough. Only the strong have a slight chance of escaping from here." He twirled the revolver in his hand and casually lifted the brim of his hat with the barrel. "I'm a man who believes in fair trade. Since you've helped me heal my injuries, I can't just shortchange you. If you don't want coins, take a look at what valuable items I might have on me. You can pick whatever you like." He opened his hand, fully embodying the audacity of a demon hunter. Lin hesitated for a moment. His gaze instantly fell upon the two metallic revolvers hanging from his belt. Snap! Lin grabbed one of the guns. Snap! The demon hunter firmly seized his wrist. The surroundings plunged into an eerie silence. A slight smirk curled at the corner of the demon hunter's lips as he coldly remarked, "Damn, you've got a good eye. You picked the most valuable thing on my person." Lin replied earnestly, "I think these two guns look really cool." The demon hunter chuckled coldly. "Cool? Of course, they're cool. Don't you see whose guns they are? Could they be anything less than cool?" The demon hunter lightly flicked his fingers, and the two revolvers danced in his hand. In an instant, the two dark muzzles were aimed squarely at Lin's head. Lin, the demon hunter, maintained a stoic expression and then pulled the trigger. Bang, 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 bang. The gunfire echoed incessantly, a consecutive 12 shots. 12 bullets were discharged. Lin stood there, and on the wall behind him appeared the outline of his head, created by the bullet holes. The demon hunter lightly blew away the black smoke wafting from the holes and calmly stated, "Though undeniably cool, these two guns have a fatal flaw, as you probably noticed just now." Lin said, "Potato aim." The demon hunter sneered. "These two guns were once cursed. You can think of it as, no matter how you fire them, your bullets will never hit the mark. So," he nonchalantly holstered the guns and said, "Apart from using them to show off, they're pretty much only good for showing off." A brief silence hung in the air. Lin, somewhat dazed, said, "Then, I don't want them." He turned to leave. Bang, 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 bang. Bullets popped off, striking the ground near his feet, causing Lin to leap into the air and swiftly press against the wall. With a smoky gun in hand, the demon hunter calmly stated, "Since you've made your choice, you can't just change your mind. I'm a stickler for fairness and trustworthiness. If you refuse now, it means you're looking down on me. So, I'll give you one more chance. Do you want them or not?" Lin stared and replied firmly, "I want them." The demon hunter's lips, covered in stubble, curled up slightly. He twirled the gun with a rattling sound, and then he slammed the gun onto the operating table. "Indeed, you're my fellow kin, truly generous. If it weren't for the curse preventing me from voluntarily disposing of these two guns, I would have done so long ago. Now that you can take them off my hands, I'm quite relieved." Lin was taken aback and asked, "What do you mean?" The demon hunter smiled faintly and explained, "Because of the curse, I can't get rid of this gun by myself. It's necessary for fellow kin to show a strong desire to possess it, and it can only be traded through a fair transaction. But, as you know, there are very few humans in this cursed place, and finding someone to take over is not that easy. The demon hunter adjusted his hat and turned toward the hall, speaking slowly. Since you've done me such a big favor, I can also give you some information. Tonight, no matter what sounds you hear outside, do not attempt to go out and do not open the door. Something terrible has arrived in your vicinity. As these words left his lips, Lin was suddenly taken aback, because this was precisely the warning given to him by his master. Lin immediately inquired, "What kind of creatures are they?" The demon hunter sneered, "I think it's best if you don't know. Also, if you manage to survive until tomorrow, I believe we will meet again. Hee. In the next moment, the demon hunter disappeared into the dark. In the hall, Lin toyed with the revolver in his hand, pondering the words of the demon hunter from earlier. He glanced at the entrance, whether it was an illusion or not. As night fell, the darkness outside seemed to grow denser than usual. Lin played with the revolver in his hand and cast a fleeting glance at the ghost baby on the counter. During this period of inattention, this ghost baby had actually grown to level 7. With this terrifying rate of growth, it wouldn't be long before it became exceedingly difficult to handle. Could this gun really be as he described, unable to hit the target no matter what? Lin hesitated. He closed one eye and aimed at the ghost baby's head. Then, a bullet instantly grazed the ghost baby's ear. Lin raised an eyebrow, blew away the black smoke emanating from the muzzle, and said, "It really can't hit." He was somewhat skeptical. "Well, there's still half an hour left. Might as well use it for target practice." Lin remained composed. Then, soon enough, half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. With a whoosh, the soul lamp hanging on the doorpost suddenly extinguished without warning. Without a second thought, Lin immediately raised his head, his expression serious. He rushed to the front door and retrieved the extinguished soul lamp. The darkness outside the door grew even denser, and there was an eerie silence. Lin knew the night had fallen. Creak. He immediately closed the door and locked it with a rusty iron chain. All the windows on either side of the door were tightly boarded up. His experiences over the past 2 years had taught him that when the soul lamp went out and night fell, it was a significant test, as it meant that anyone could enter your sanctuary without your permission. Lin's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly regained his composure. This wasn't a good sign. Triggering a quest meant that there was a high probability of a major crisis tonight. Because this time, the reward was a whopping 500 skull coins. Usually, the higher the reward, the greater the danger. Underneath the thick blankets, he held the boning knife in his hand, his expression calm. Suddenly, urgent knocking resounded from downstairs at the outer door. Lin quickly opened the door. "It's me, your master. Evil spirits are chasing me. Hurry, let me in." A series of suppressed and agonizing voices. "Master." Lin abruptly sat up from his bed. He swiftly grabbed the boning knife and rushed to the hall. And then, he immediately saw the trembling of the front door, heard the violent panting, and the stifled, agonizing moans from outside. It was his master's voice. "Lin, quickly, I can't hold on much longer." Lin nodded. Holding the boning knife, he dashed to the front door. Then, he raised the knife and thrust it out through the crack. Crimson blood gushed out instantly from the other side of the door crack. Lin shouted, "Master, if you can't make it, then embrace death outside." A brief silence. Then, from outside the door, that dazed voice spoke again. "You weren't even sure if I was your master, and you stabbed me directly. Because if it were me outside, my master would have stabbed me too," Lin said earnestly. A brief silence, and it was in the next moment that a series of piercing shrieks emanated from outside the door, growing increasingly intense and loud. It sounded as if something was pressing against the door, desperately trying to squeeze inside. With a loud crack, a blood-soaked, nearly decomposed hand suddenly pierced through the door, reaching inside. That reaching hand continued to scratch at the door, producing sharp and piercing sounds. "I shall devour you. I will rend you to pieces and chew each bit slowly in my mouth." Grabbing a boning knife, with a single strike, he pinned that hand to the door panel. Instantly, shrill and distorted wails echoed from outside the door, and concurrently, crimson blood seeped incessantly through the wood. Without another word, Lin swiftly untied a strand of red hair from his wrist. This was one of the rewards he received from the system during the day. Thou it was coming in handy. Zip. Upon contact with the bloody, decaying hand, the strand of hair quickly wrapped around and extended beyond the door, and within mere seconds, the sharp laughter outside abruptly ceased. In its place were bouts of suffocating gasps. It sounded as though something had its neck constricted, struggling madly outside. "It seems like it's just a minor ghost, not very strong." Len gritted his teeth. He seized the wildly growing hair strand, swiftly suspending it on the beam, and then pulled forcefully. The tearing of flesh kept emanating from outside. With those tearing sounds, the frequency of the struggling of the hand pinned to the door panel also became increasingly violent. Finally, the hand slowly slumped down. It seemed to have lost all signs of life. However, Lin didn't relax in the slightest. Drawing out the boning knife, he stabbed through the crack of the door over 100 times before he finally relaxed. One of the survival guides in this world. Hearing the system's prompt, Lin finally relaxed. That is to say, the monster just now indeed hadn't died thoroughly. It was only after he stabbed it over 100 times that it finally breathed its last. Lin was about to clean the bloodstains on the ground. But just then, Lin froze instantly. But his response was swift, almost immediately pressing against the exterior wall, his gaze fixed sternly on the door from the side. Holding his breath. Origin level. What the hell is going on? Could it be the big one the demon hunter mentioned would appear tonight? And at the next moment, Lin abruptly felt an immense coldness spreading across his skin. Then he immediately saw the hand of the flesh monster that had stretched into the doorframe twitch slightly. Then, as if something forcefully yanked it outward, the decaying hand instantly withdrew. Lin severed the spirit hair strand hanging from the beam with a single slice. Whoosh! The cold, eerie fog began to permeate from the hole in the door panel. Lin held his breath. In the murkiness, he could hear a series of chewing sounds coming from outside. It was as though something was chewing on ribs. Crunch, crunch. That is to say, the origin level monster is now on the street outside, and this level of coldness is also his first encounter. The demon hunter indeed didn't lie to him. Tonight outside is unusually restless. Damn it, could I really be this unlucky? Did I really encounter it? He saw a beam of light shot in through the gap smashed by the flesh monster. Lin was certain that beam of light was the gaze of that unknown monster. Lin stayed still, like a sculpture pressed against the wall, and at this moment, on the door frame less than a meter away from him, at that hole, a huge eye was peering inside through that small hole. Lin could even hear his own heartbeats. Slurp, slurp. From the outside came the sound of licking the door panel. Lin stared, daring not to move. But for some reason, he found the slurping licking sounds unusually adorable. But at this moment, Lin suddenly saw a tentacle, like a blood-red tongue, slowly probe in through the small hole. No, take back what I just said. This has absolutely nothing to do with adorable. Lin didn't dare to move an inch. Under his gaze, the blood-red tentacle licked every drop of blood on the inner side of the door panel. Then, as if not having enough, the tentacle slowly crept towards Lin's direction. Slurp, slurp. Like a tongue, the tentacle left trace after trace of licking on Lin's face. Lin was dumbfounded, standing there, his whole body rigid. His sanity was plummeting. If it were him from 2 years ago, or any other human, they probably would have screamed and run away by now under these circumstances. But after all, Lin is no ordinary person. He knows very well that, under the current circumstances, as soon as he dares to run, or shows a bit of panic and fear, he would immediately be eaten by the monster outside the door. But at this moment, a voice like a baby's suddenly came from outside the door. "Doctor, found you." Lin's heart thumped, and in the next moment, the voice came again. "Open up, toothache." Lin, something's not right. Something's not right. Could it be that this monster outside the door is not here to eat him, but to seek medical attention? Lin tried hard to calm himself down and said with wide eyes, "But our little shop doesn't accept customers at night. It's the rule of the shop. No customers, eat you." Lin swiftly took out his keys, unlocked them, and opened the door in one go. "Bloodsaw Potion Shop sincerely at your service." Lin bowed deeply at 90 degrees. "Our shop adheres to the excellent tradition of curing diseases with medicine and surgery. How may I assist you?" Whoosh! A surge of cold air instantly flooded in from the outside. After seeing the full appearance of the monster outside the door, Lin's heart raced, and his sanity value plummeted even more. What the hell is this monster? To be precise, it was a human head. A baby's head as tall as 2 stories. No torso, from where the neck should be. Numerous red tentacles spread out densely, like snakes. Those huge eyes, like searchlights, were shooting out 2 bleak white lights. And in front of Lin's eyes, its panel appeared instantly. That huge baby head slowly opened its mouth, and instantly, a wave of foul smell almost made Lin pass out. "Toothache, doctor." An incredible huge, bizarre baby's head, but the voice from its mouth was delicate like a child's, and those sharp teeth dripping with blood were eerie enough to make one lose all their sanities on the spot. "If can't cure, we'll eat." This voice is surprisingly somewhat cute. "Don't worry, it can definitely be cured. A toothache is just a small problem." "May I ask which tooth is aching?" Lin inquired, his eyes wide. "Molar." The voice of the baby's head came. Lin looked into that gigantic mouth, but because it was too far inside and dimly lit, he couldn't see clearly at all. Lin gritted his teeth and made a bold decision. "Please open your mouth wide. I will diagnose you right now." The baby head's mouth opened a bit wider. Lin took a deep breath to calm his mind. At this point, it really was like trying to save a dead horse as if it were alive. Just be normal, be normal. Just treat it like an ordinary child. You can do it. Lin carefully climbed onto the mouth of the baby's head, jumped onto its tongue, braved the foul smell, and advanced toward the direction of the molar. The further inside he went, the more pungent the smell became. There's no light, I can't see, Lin shouted. A horrifying scene occurred. A tentacle slowly stretched above the baby's head, and Lin immediately saw the tentacle wrapping around one of the baby head's eyeballs, entering the gigantic mouth. Instantly, the pallid gaze illuminated the entire oral cavity. Lin was drenched in sweat. Now it's clear. He didn't dare to delay, turned his head, and his gaze went in the direction of its molar. Vaguely, he could see various food residues stained all over the surrounding teeth, including severed hands, shattered skulls, viscera, and rotten flesh. It was undoubtedly a strikingly horrifying and terrifying scene. Obviously, this monster has a very diverse diet. Lin, suppressing his profound shock, started to search carefully, and just the next moment, Lin's gaze instantly fell on a spear embedded in the molar. A thought crossed Lin's mind. It seemed that the reason causing this monster's toothache had been found, but he never expected this is actually a weapon from a non-dark world, with the same function as the demon hunter's handgun. And it also has a holy attribute. Could it be causing severe pain to this monster due to this spear? Lin's expression was one of uncertainty. He cautiously approached to inspect it and then immediately saw that, at the front of the spear, there was actually a sticky severed hand attached to it. Obviously, the user of this spear was eaten by this monster. The other parts of the body have been digested, but the weapon in the hand was stuck hard between this monster's teeth. Guessed? I found the reason for the toothache, Lin shouted. That delicate and horrifying voice came. Pull it out, if can't, eat. Lin steadied his mind. Then his gaze instantly fell on the large number of severed limbs around that molar. Lin's heart raced incessantly. Clearly, he wasn't the first doctor this monster had sought out. Judging by the circumstances, this patient definitely had a considerable temper. When it said it would devour him, it surely would. But Lin soon discovered a commonality amongst those doctors. They were all creatures of the dark world. And this spear apparently had a profound restraining effect on such creatures. The spear emitted a wisp of exceedingly dim light before rapidly fading away. No backlash. Just as he had speculated, Lin steadied his spirit, and starting to pull it out, Lin shouted. Then Lin immediately mustered all his strength, his hands tightly clutching the spear, one foot braced against the molar, pulling forcefully outward. He exerted all his strength, for his very life depended on whether he could pull this spike out. It's loosening. The eyeball illuminating for Lin also revealed a look of elation. Success seemed within reach. Lin pulled even harder on the spear, but his strength was still inadequate. Besides the fate loosening, attempting to pull it further became increasingly challenging. Lend a hand, lend a hand. Lin, clenching his teeth, shouted at the tentacles excitedly surrounding the mouth. A brief pause. The tentacles rushed in immediately, wrapping around Lin's waist, one after another, and began to pull forcefully outward. But aside from nearly causing Lin a cerebral hemorrhage, the progress of the spear was exceptionally slow. Lin became anxious, stopped for a moment. Everyone, listen to my command. I will shout 1, 2, 3, and then everyone pulls together, understand? Understood. Lin took a deep breath. He gripped the spear tighter, his expression becoming grave. 1, 2, 3, pull, Lin roared. In an instant, Lin and those tentacles pulled together forcefully. With tremendous inertia, the spear, under the combined force of Lin and numerous tentacles, was suddenly flung out of the mouth, falling heavily to the ground. We did it. Lin stared blankly at the spear. Does this mean he would finally not die? But it still hurts. The colossal head with the gaping mouth lowered an eyeball, its gaze enveloping Lin as if under a spotlight. Lin peered inside, his eyes falling on the large hole left in the tooth from where the spear had been pulled. And at that moment, blood was spurting from the hole like a gushing fountain. Wait a moment. Without another word, Lin flashed a slight smile, dashed back to the shop, rummaged through, and pulled out a large amount of anesthesia and hemostatic agents. Now that the foreign object was removed, what followed was much simpler. If one could overlook this monster's horrifying appearance, it actually wasn't much different from his other clients. Lin rushed back. Bleeding is a normal reaction, but to fully recover, further treatment is needed. Keep your mouth open, don't move. Having found the cause and extracted the pain-inducing culprit, the subsequent steps were much simpler. The hole, albeit only fist-sized, had evidently reached deep into the tooth roots. He hadn't observed closely before, but now it was clear that the tooth's interior had been invaded by holy power. even emanating a faint glow. Clearly, it was the dispersed holy power that was incessantly inflicting pain on this monster. But the bleeding was too severe. Administering hemostatic and pain-relieving medicine into the tooth roots was exceedingly strenuous. Lin pondered. His gaze instantly fell on the eyeball that had followed him to assess the situation, and the crimson tentacle beside it. Smooth and adorable in appearance. Smack. Lin immediately pinched the tentacle. Guest, do you still need this tentacle? I need to use it to alleviate your pain. Lin shouted. Lin chopped off that adorable tentacle with a single stroke. In an instant, countless tentacles observing from outside the mouth surged forward, ready to assault Lin. However, they quickly halted. Lin was seen holding the severed tentacle firmly within a wooden basin, his expression stern. He poured vial after vial of potion into the basin and, extracting a syringe, squeakily injected the concoction into the tentacle. The other tentacles stayed frozen in their place, their eyeballs peering curiously. Minutes passed. Light, Lin shouted as he abruptly seized the potion-filled tentacle. Lin had indeed entered his zone. The tentacle holding the eyeball visibly shuddered, hastily focusing its beam of light upon the bleeding molar. Lin leaped forward, aiming the potion-filled tentacle at the cavity with a grave expression. Then, he thrust forcefully. A scream of pain erupted from the monster baby's head. It had pierced in one go. However, it was clear the tentacle in hand was somewhat too large, and the hole too narrow. To thrust deeply, the assistance of a robust tool was indispensable. The next moment, with a plurt sound, Lin inserted the rod upon the tentacle pressed against the hole. Smack. Smack. For a moment, sparks flew, thunder roared, and lightning flashed. The tentacles and the eyeball inside the mouth, all spectating, were petrified, retracting to a corner. Pain. The monster baby head's head began to thrash wildly. Clearly, these relentless strikes, one after another, were causing it considerable, tearing pain. This is normal. Bear with it. It will stop hurting once we reach the deepest part. Trust my professional standard. After continuously striking hundreds of times, the tentacle, filled with potions by Lin, was finally smashed and hammered into the tooth cavity by him. The potion has started working, but this is just the beginning. To have healthy teeth, further processing is needed. The eyeball was vigorously nodding, expressing trust. Clearly, after Lin's excellent efforts just now, this monster had begun to trust him somewhat. Lin was keeping track of time. About 5 minutes had passed. It's time. We can start working. Lin raised his head, his expression serious, and from the side picked up his master's drill, pulling forcefully. Sing, sparks scattered in all directions. Goggles. The surrounding tentacles quickly passed goggles to Lin. Light. The tentacles immediately held up the eyeball, focusing on the spot where Lin was working. Lin spat on his hands, gripped tightly, and started his breathtaking task on the molar with the drill. The inside of this tooth has been corrupted by holy power. This is also the main reason causing your toothache. If the holy substance inside isn't completely removed, once the effect of the medicine wears off, the pain will still be unbearable. So, a preliminary cleaning of your tooth is needed, and then I'll fill it with a strong and sturdy good tooth. The eyeball gazed curiously, casting its light for Lin in stunned fascination. Zing zing zing. Lin, with his drill in hand, meticulously ground away all the luminous substance inside the teeth. Fetch a bucket, Lin commanded loudly. The tentacle shot rapidly into the shock, winding around a wooden bucket before passing it over. Lin's expression was solemn as he swiftly deposited all the ground tooth powder into the bucket. Fetch water, Lin commanded again. The tentacle swiftly returned, entwined around a large water tank. Lin cleaned all the powder around the tooth thoroughly. Then his expression grew even more serious. What else needed? Perceiving Lin's puzzlement, a delicate yet horrifying voice emerged. Lin solemnly said, I need filling material, but I don't have enough supplies here. Otherwise, I could have given you a shining steel tooth. Steel? Lin pondered. Yes, but to get the supplies, it has to be at least tomorrow. I have steel. Lin was taken aback, and before he could comprehend, he immediately felt the ground tremble beneath his feet, and then he saw the buildings outside retreating rapidly. Apparently, this massive head was moving swiftly. In the next moment, they stopped outside the doors of a huge metallic building. Before Lin could react, its tongue shot out like a blade. The entire building was split in two instantaneously. He had seen such a monster once before when a similar puppet had invaded their little shop causing destruction. His master, wielding a chainsaw, battled with this monster for several hours before driving it away. Why had it brought him here? A loud noise echoed. A puppet inside the metal house, unable to react, was immediately flattened into a steel pancake by the baby head's tongue. Lin was dumbfounded. This was too outrageous. Enough, the infant-like voice asked. Boom, another steel puppet was directly flattened. Enough. Actually, one is already enough. Melting, forging, molding. Under the strenuous hammering of the massive infantile head's robust tongue, it only took a few hours for Lin to forcibly cast an iron tooth, meticulously conforming to the shape of the gap in the tooth. Then, using a powerful adhesive, he precisely welded the steel tooth to the molar. After a series of grinding and polishing, a brand new tooth, under a series of operations by Lin, became completely renewed. Perfect. Lin wiped the sweat from his forehead, revealing a satisfied smile, feeling a sublime elevation of character. Doctor, impressive. The immense baby head issued a delicate voice. Those two colossal eyes focused on Lin. I won't eat you anymore. Lin adjusted his monocle, bowed a standard 90 degrees, and displayed a professionally radiant smile. The praise from our customers is always our solid motivation to move forward. Would you like to try our shop's newly introduced dental care services? Lin blinked. This super monster that he finally encountered had a favorable impression of him. If he didn't promptly cling to it and make it a returning customer, wouldn't he be out of his mind? Health services, the monster conveyed a curious voice. Lin, with a smile, responded, yes, our shop can provide you with long-term dental care, rid you of any oral ailments, and maintain the cleanliness and health of your teeth, preventing toothache, mouth ulcers, tooth loss, and other abnormal symptoms. The gigantic baby head seemed to ponder. Then Lin received an affirmative response. This is the effect he wanted. Then roaming in other worlds, the more friends, the more roads. If he didn't foster a good relationship with a monster of this level, he would truly be brain damaged. The more Lin cleaned, the more astonished he became. For this place was veritably a trove of treasures. After purging the diverse limbs and fragments from the monster's mouth, under the curious gaze of that eye, Lin hastily dashed to the shop storeroom and brought back bucket after bucket of materials, quickly mixing them in the center of the hall. It's the slime of a dark slime, capable of producing abundant foam, combined with soap nuts that have antibacterial and refreshing properties. Additionally, a special potion made by my master is added for wound cleaning and whitening. It can maintain the long-lasting brightness of your teeth and freshen your breath. Impressive. The eyeball bobbed in stunned agreement. It wasn't entirely understood, but it was definitely impressive. Soon, the Dark World brand toothpaste was ready. Lin fetched a large brush from the backyard, holding the bucket filled with bubbling slime, and jumped into the monster's mouth, embarking on his diligent toothbrushing work. Can I help? The eyeball, watching Lin's brushing work with curiosity, seemed somewhat eager to try. This was indeed very novel. Here, Lin generously brought out a heap of small brushes from the shop. The tentacles immediately imitated Lin, each one holding a brush, curiously dipping in the slime, brushing, and turning the eyeball to watch, mimicking Lin's movements. Brush like this first, then like this, and then like this. Oh, you also need to clean the dirt between the teeth to prevent infections. Lin continued cleaning for a whole hour. Hearing the system prompt, Lin, sweating profusely, put down his brush and sat on the steps, his face revealing a satisfied smile after labor. Doesn't it feel completely renewed compared to before? The shining and white teeth reflected a dazzling luster. The eyeball revealed a sparkling expression. It was utterly transformed from the bloody, yellow-toothed appearance it had before. It was so clean, it practically shimmered like it was freshly born. Having such gleaming teeth indeed makes anything one chews seem appetizing. Are you satisfied with the service? Yes. Do you want to become a lifelong member of this shop? You can come here for a free dental cleaning anytime. Want? What is your name? So I can register it. When you come next time, you can receive a golden membership card and a small gift specially made for you. What is name? It's how other beings refer to you. Don't have name. Do you want me to give you one for free? Okay, thank you for visiting the shop, and we look forward to your next visit. Lin bowed a standard 90 degrees to the origin level monster who, bouncing happily and showing its gleaming teeth, was heading towards the end of the street. As he kept smiling until the ultimate monster left, Lin immediately dashed into the potion shop, grabbed a hammer and nails, and quickly nailed the door shut, eyes wide, pressing his pounding heart. Only then did he completely relax, although the process seemed very harmonious. As a human, facing such a terrifying monster, it would be a lie to say he wasn't afraid. Thankfully, I have a strong mentality, otherwise, I couldn't possibly have survived tonight. Lin let out a sigh and wiped the sweat from his forehead. But it was all right. He had won the favor of the origin-level monster through his remarkable eloquence, and medical expertise. Lin was very clear, in this dark world, origin-level monsters were akin to the max-level bosses in online games. Any one of them wasn't something ordinary monsters could contend with. And I have a feeling it's not just one. Lin widened his eyes, trying to calm his heartbeat. It was clear the demon hunter must have come following these origin-level monsters, but he never appeared in Wandering Soul Lane, which meant there were definitely other high-risk powerful monsters in the surrounding areas here. Fortunately, this time, he encountered a kind origin monster that could communicate. Otherwise, being squashed like those steel puppets would have been his fate. Indeed, sometimes being skilled can serve as a means to save one's life, Lin murmured. After all, technicians are always the most popular wherever they are placed. After a day of trials, his overall level had indeed advanced to level 5. His fundamental skills in various aspects had also received substantial enhancement. Lin exhaled deeply. He decisively allocated all 8 assignable points to his physique. His physique surged instantly to 28. The exhaustion from a night's labor swiftly dissipated with the allocation to his physique. After allocating the points, Lin promptly opened the reward the system had just bestowed upon him. Lin's eyes lit up instantly. Curse removal. Although it wasn't permanent, Lin immediately thought of one of its uses. It was the revolver he got from the demon hunter. If he could erase the curse on that gun, then he would truly possess a legendary defensive weapon. Curse removal. Lin extended his hand and shouted. Instantly, strands of dark and viscous aura slowly seeped out from the silvery revolver, each accompanied by a series of piercing wails. The next moment, under Lin's watchful eyes, the viscous aura was rapidly pulled away and suppressed. With the system's notification, Lin's mouth curved into a smile. He gripped the revolver. Although it would only last 24 hours, this gun could play a significant role at critical moments. Lin turned around and aimed at a bottle on the corner of the table. He pulled the trigger. Then, a silver bullet instantly blasted out. It successfully hit the wall. Then, Lin fired several more shots in succession, but not a single one hit the bottle. System, is the ability you gave me a fake? I have wiped away the curse. Why is the hit rate still so low? Lin decisively ignored the system's explanation. However, he quickly fell into contemplation. It seemed that if he really wanted to use this gun in actual combat, he still needed a long period of firearm practice. After all, becoming a sharpshooter isn't achieved overnight. Realizing this, Lin's spirit was lifted. He placed the empty bottle on the windowsill, standing 10 meters away. Aim, fire, bang, miss, bang, miss. Upon the windowsill, a bullet hole as thick as a finger had suddenly appeared in the wooden plank. From the distant streets, a series of eerie, long howls immediately resonated. Who is it? Who's that ambushed me? Lin rapidly rushed to the window, tore off the plank, replaced it with a new one, and swiftly nailed it down. Thud, thud, thud. Then, like a wisp of smoke, he hurried back to his loft, dove into his quilt, and enveloped his head, falling into a deep sleep. It was as smooth as drifting clouds and flowing water, all done in one breath. Lin suddenly opened his eyes from the moldy pallet. The massive cobwebs on the roof beams were still constantly reminding him this was not a dream. He was still in this dark world. It had already been 2 years and 1 day he had spent here. One by one, viscous tentacles caressed his face and neck, and inside the quilt, there was the bubbling sound of some foaming bubbles. His body was covered in various forms of viscous fluids. He grabbed the silver revolver from beside the bed, reached into the quilt, and aimed downwards. Bang, 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 3 shots. Miss, miss. Lin threw off the quilt. In an instant, one after another, the octopus-like dark tentacles suddenly burst out from inside his quilt, wriggling and scattering all over. And at this very moment, the monster, with a good-looking baby face, was lying on his stomach, its face black. The countless tentacles were the twisted things crazily growing from its body. So, it has collapsed again. Lin stared. No wonder he kept feeling something and wanted to find a place to burrow into his body all the second half of the night. He freaking slept with an octopus monster for a whole night. It had been less than a day, and it had astonishingly soared to level 10. And the corruption was severe. Apart from the face he had molded yesterday, every other part of the body had been completely filled with wildly growing tentacles. In that case, I shall continue to adjust you properly today. Lin cracked his wrists, his face stern. Lin reached out his hand. He lifted the ghost baby by the back of its neck. Each tentacle dangled listlessly. Due to the immense fear accumulated towards Lin from the previous day, it had no desire to resist him at all in his presence. It was like being so terrified of someone that you would become very obedient. It stared blankly at the frightening human who lifted it, its cloudy consciousness making it somewhat anxious about what might transpire next. What is he going to do? Would it be like yesterday, ruthlessly molding its face into a strange shape again? In the next moment, Lin grabbed two robust and slippery tentacles on its body, his expression serious. And then, like pulling noodles, he pulled, kneaded, and pushed in an instant. Ghost baby. You're still too disobedient, growing so many strange tentacles all over your body without the doctor's permission. This is extremely unhealthy for the growth of a child. Lin tied those wriggling tentacles in knots, one after another. Swiftly and forcibly, he pushed them back in. Let Dr. Lin give you another makeover. Ghost baby. More than half an hour later, Lin looked satisfactorily at the ghost baby on the table in front of him. Yesterday, he had only molded the face of the ghost baby. The completion of a full set of services today left Lin immensely satisfied with his hands-on ability. Rosy cheeks, chubby little hands, a little baby like a doll. If placed in the human world, it would undoubtedly be the healthy and perfect human child that would light up countless mothers' eyes and make people fall in love with it uncontrollably. Of course, because there were too many tentacles due to the correction. Even at the end, many tissues remained. So Lin made a slight adjustment on its body. Lin extended his finger. He flicked the cute and small beast ears on its head. Aren't they super cute? Maintain this shape and do not collapse arbitrarily. Lin instructed seriously. Only in this way can you grow up healthily and become a little kid who is loved by all. Understand? After practicing his shooting for half an hour, Lin got up. As usual, he took the broom and began his daily cleaning work. After the cleaning, Lin took the soul lamp, carefully lit the tinder with flint, and then opened the shop, hanging the soul lamp on the door pillar. Like yesterday, it was still foggy outside the door, and nothing could be seen 10 steps away. Placing the ghost baby on the counter, Lin sat down, intending to examine the new functions of the system carefully. System, open them all. He couldn't touch the shop's regular income, but the skull coins he earned through tasks, now amounting to a full 2551, definitely make him rich. After reviewing the goods for sale, Lin stood up with a swoosh, his eyes wide open. System, are you sure these are the goods you are selling to me? Lin had very high expectations for the system's mall. After all, in the novels he read before crossing over to this world, items from the system were always considered top-notch. Superman bloodlines, star destroyers, cute maids. In those stories, the system had everything, limited only by one's imagination. Now, look at his system. To the uninformed, it looked more like a junk store. At a glance, there was nothing particularly useful. System, refresh the goods. Lin took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and sat back down. All right, even though the mall was completely contrary to his expectations. But at least it was an additional source of supplies, right? Toxic slime liquid. Bought it. Might be useful later for concocting some toxic potions. A fortune cat figure that brings bad luck. What was its purpose? Would he ever think he's too lucky and buy it to jinx himself? Bought it. Might be useful as a gift later. Baby diapers. Lin's gaze instinctively shifted to the mascot ghost baby he had placed on the counter, considering its rapid growth and the fact that he had molded it into a humanoid shape. It would be inappropriate to leave it bare. Bought it. This could be handy. Soon after, his attention was captured by the fourth item on the list. This recipe is the only decent item among those sold by the system. Moreover, it also sells a very hard-to-get material in combination. This item is definitely worth more than its price. Without hesitation, Lin bagged these two items, along with the critical hit potion rewarded by the system yesterday. He now had exclusive recipes for two kinds of potions. Lin was not in a hurry to concoct them. As a potion shop, every once in a while, merchants would come with various raw materials for supply, and calculating the time, it was today. Lin quickly prepared the skull coin and packed the large number of limbs and arms he had excavated from the mouth of that origin-level monster yesterday. Outside the door, the fog was dense, and the air was filled with dark mist. Lin waited patiently at the door. Gradually, the sound of creaking wheels and footsteps rose from the darkness of the street. An old woman with a benevolent yet eerie smile on her face, holding a human skin lantern, appeared in his vision and stopped in front of the potion shop. Young man, do you have any useless jump to this old woman? Yes. Hearing the appearance of the system task, Lin was overjoyed. He agreed very cheerfully, then quickly went back to the shop and dragged out a large hemp sack with effort. Young man, you have so much stuff to deal with this time. The smile on the old woman's face seemed to become even brighter. Lin politely said, yes, do you need me to help you put it on the cart, ma'am? All right. You really are troubling yourself, young man. The old woman's smile was exceptionally kind. Lin strenuously lifted the large bag of junk and placed it on the cart pulled by the scavenger. The moment he put it down, the smile on the old woman's face instantly stiffened. Aura from Origin level. The old woman's face was strange, and a hint of shock flashed through her muddy eyes. She immediately felt the overwhelming weight and oppressiveness coming from the cart. Her gaze at Lin became especially astonished. Lin smiled and said, "It might have been contaminated a bit. Last night, I checked the teeth for a customer, and this is the useless stuff I cleaned out from its mouth. I thought you might need it, so I planned to leave it for you." The old woman's expression was instantly shocked. "You've checked the teeth of an origin-level monster. Weren't you afraid it would eat you?" Her gaze at Lin became even more astonished, as if she had gained a deeper understanding of the young man before her. Lin laughed. "What is there to be afraid of? Serving customers is our motto at Bloodsaw Potion Shop. Regardless of who comes, we treat everyone the same." For a moment, Lin clearly felt the gaze of the old woman in front of him had changed, becoming as if she was looking at a monster. She lowered her voice, emitting a series of hoarse sounds from her throat. "Last night, 3 origin level came here. You probably helped the smaller one. I advise you not to get involved with them. You probably don't know yet. Last night, the neighboring Slaughter Alley, Evil Spirit Street, and Shadow Spirit Lane were empty by those 3 headhunters, and half of the 15 high-rank demon hunters and magic spirits were killed." Lin was stunned. "The headhunter you met yesterday probably planned to come to our Wandering Soul Lane for food. It seems that because of you, Wandering Soul Lane was spared." Lin was dumbfounded. "But I felt that the customer yesterday was quite cute. Shouldn't be so vicious, right?" The old woman seemed to have heard something extremely shocking and unbelievable. Then, under Lin's gaze, the old woman stretched out her withered hand, slowly reaching towards her own chest. "Young man, what you gave me this time is too valuable. I can't digest it for a while. This thing is what I just scavenged. Maybe it's useful to you." A sound of flesh being pierced was heard. Then Lin saw. The old woman inserted her hand into her own chest, and forcibly pulled out a heart that was still beating and bleeding. The heart was emitting rolling heat, thumping in the air. "You take it." The old woman smiled hoarsely. The old woman laughed grimly. "If you want someone to die, just think about them in your heart, and then deal with this heart in the most vicious way. You will harvest great joy." Hehe. Lin was instantly horrified. Indeed, not many things carried by this old woman are ordinary. This heart is definitely a big weapon in terms of effects, but inevitably, the cost of using it should also be extremely high. Soon, the old woman disappeared into the fog ahead, pulling her cart bit by bit. Watching the old woman leave, Lin looked at the beating heart in his hand. His eyes were strange. His bizarre collection is growing. This trade is absolutely worth it. This scavenger passes by the shop every morning, definitely. A friendly NPC that can exchange various items regularly. When the monsters delivering goods every week arrived, Lin paid a large amount of skull coins and replenished the store's inventory. Calculating the time, tonight or by tomorrow, his master should be back. Back at the counter, Lin quietly awaited the arrival of today's first customer. Outside the door, the black fog surged, and at this moment, bang bang bang, 3 knocks on the door were heard. Lin immediately raised his head, with a professional smile on his face. "Welcome." The soul fire hanging on the doorpost flickered violently. Lin's pupils contracted, because such violent flickering of the soul fire indicates that the visitor's level is definitely not low. Outside the door, a woman in a red evening gown was standing smilingly at the threshold, wavy curls spilling down her back. A charming woman who seemed to drain you with just one glance. "Boss, wish you a prosperous business." The woman was holding a covered plate in her hand, and faint whiffs of a meaty aroma could be smelled from it. Lin heightened his vigilance, though his face remained calm, saying, "Hello, is there anything discomforting you, dear guest, that requires treatment?" The blood-clad evil spirit had a particularly radiant smile. "I am not feeling discomfort. As I just moved to this street this morning, I plan to visit my neighbors. You should surely not mind my visit." She delicately licked her crimson lips. Lin was acutely aware that, in this dark world, monsters that seemed normal were the most dangerous, and the woman before him emitted a conspicuously ominous aura. "Welcome, certainly welcome." Lin's smile remained unchanged on his face. "Please come in. Bloodsaw Potion Shop welcomes any friendly neighbors." For such creatures, whose levels were entirely indiscernible, the soul lamp outside the door would fundamentally be of little use. "Boss, you don't seem like a native around here." The woman gracefully seated herself on a stool before the counter, her chin resting on her hand. A lingering smile and a charming gaze fixated on Lin. "Aren't you afraid of being consumed by some unfriendly customers?" Her finger gently traced in front of Lin's chest, utterly enchanting. However, Lin immediately regained his composure. With a professional smile on his face, he swiftly unsheathed the boning knife left by his teacher, smilingly said, "I do harbor some fears, but a doctor's duty is to heal and save." even in fear, as long as one is my patient, I must treat them seriously. This is the principle of being a doctor. The woman flirtatiously blinked. Her laughter is sweet as the breath of orchids, saying, how interesting. What if one is not a patient? And what if I want to consume you? She gently blew a breath at Lin, whispering like someone sweet-talking beside the ear. Maintaining his composure with a smile, Lin seriously responded, impossible, miss. You're so beautiful. Surely your heart is as exquisite as your appearance. A lady as beautiful and elegant as you, even when dining, would definitely do so with the dignity and grace of nobility. Quite the sweet talker, the woman charmingly laughed, her finger gracefully gliding across her lips, asking, do you really find me beautiful? Absolutely. And now, do you still find me beautiful? In that instant, under Lin's gaze, the woman's face slowly split open from the middle. Her face still bore the same smile, and from the fleshly fissure emerged rows of sharp, inverted teeth, one by one, viscous and foul tentacles squeezed out from that split face. At the same time, a strong stench mixed with the scent of blood emanated from her body. Do you still find me beautiful now? From the chilling crevice of the grotesque face came the sticky, jeering laughter. Slowly, as the crisis level sharply elevated, the ghost woman with the split face was inching closer and closer to Lin's face. That sticky and hoarse voice also came nearer and nearer. Am I truly beautiful? Gradually, the horrific visage was now less than 5 centimeters away from Lin's face, the viscous tentacles and sharp barbs nearly enveloping Lin. And it was at this critical juncture, Lin planted a kiss on her. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.